Deep in a quiet forest, a robed woman, an old mage, and a swordsman gathered around a small bundle. Inside lay a crying human infant, abandoned among the trees. The three beings studied the child with quiet wonder. The mage vowed to raise him as a mage, the swordsman promised a blade, and the woman cradled him. They named him Will. Years later, Will sprinted through the forest atop his companion Schultz, a great white wolf. A massive ogre crashed through the trees behind them, closing in fast. Will leaped from a branch while Schultz drew the ogre's attention, snarling and circling to keep its focus away from the boy preparing his strike. Will confronted the green ogre, sword raised, accusing it of destroying the forest and harming its creatures. He drove his blade forward with full force. The ogre roared in fury as Will unleashed a relentless assault, striking again and again until the creature collapsed under his blows. With the battle over, Will tended to the injured forest animals, using healing magic to soothe a squirrel, a rabbit, and other wounded creatures gathered around him. A rabbit nuzzled him in thanks. Schultz reminded Will that sword practice waited, teasing that today was the day of water currents, leaving little time to rest. Will bid farewell to the animals, promising to return, then leaped onto Schultz's back as they raced off toward home through the trees. Riding through the forest, Will spoke about his past, revealing he had once been an orphan, uncertain whether war or famine had left him abandoned. Memories surfaced of a baby drifting alone on a small boat discovered by a mysterious hooded traveler and a great winged bird watching over him. The traveler brought him to three divine figures: Ronan, the god of swords, Miria, the goddess of health, and Vandal, the god of magic, his destined guardians. The one who carried him there was revealed as Rios, the god of omnipotence, bearing 1,000 avatars, including a hawk and a deer. This sacred place was Table Mountain, the peak where the gods themselves resided, hidden above the ordinary world below. Will returned home at last. Ronan greeted him, welcoming him back, while Will reflected that he had been raised entirely by these gods. Ronan scolded him for being late until Vandal revealed they already knew about the green ogre, and Miria rushed forward anxiously asking if Will was hurt. Miria fussed over him, insisting he handled the threat, while Ronan boasted that he was the one who taught Will everything. Miria argued it was her turn to teach him since he had just faced danger, while Ronan declared practice would begin. Ignoring her protest, Vandal invited Will to study history with him instead, sparking bickering among the three gods as they argued over whose lesson mattered most. Ronan grinned, promising Will the dagger he wanted if his training went well today, and Will straightened up, ready to begin. Will cheered, thrilled that Ronan agreed to train him personally. Ronan chuckled with pride while Vandal clicked his tongue, clearly annoyed at being overlooked once again. Ronan demonstrated his skill, slicing a thick tree stump apart with pure sword pressure alone. He challenged Will to match the feat if he wanted to pass today's lesson. Will swung with all his strength, his blade cutting cleanly through the stump in one decisive strike. Stunned by the power surging through his own arms, Ronan praised the result, calling it impressive for his son. Will beamed with pride, insisting nothing less was expected from someone taught by Ronan himself. Ronan corrected his form afterward, explaining that his swings lacked focus and needed to extend further toward the blade's tip. Will struggled to grasp the concept. Will tried again, adjusting his grip and stance, determination burning in his eyes as he pushed his sword forward with renewed focus and effort. His blade erupted with force, shattering the target completely. Ronan watched in stunned silence, sweat forming as he realized how quickly Will's strength had grown. Ronan admitted defeat with a nervous laugh, promising to remove something from earlier lessons. Will asked eagerly how he had performed. Glowing with excitement, Ronan handed him a magnificent new sword as a reward. Will stared at it in awe, eager to show Schultz his shining new blade. Nearby, Vandal and Miria watched the destroyed stump with surprise, remarking how interesting Will had become as his power continued exceeding every expectation they held. Vandal then offered to teach him magic, presenting the Book of the Fire Dragon. Will casually revealed he had already memorized its contents completely. Vandal doubted him until Will read the ancient dialect fluently, proving his claim as swirling magical energy gathered instantly around his outstretched hand. Will unleashed a devastating firestorm spell, tearing through the landscape. Vandal watched in disbelief, awed by the raw power hidden within the boy. Elsewhere, Miria discovered a small hamster, explaining that Will had healed injured animals throughout the forest, moved deeply by his growing kindness and compassion. Miria pulled Will into a tight embrace, praising him affectionately as her precious child while he reacted with flustered embarrassment at the sudden gesture. Later, Will asked Ronan for permission to show his new dagger to the forest animals, then dashed off eagerly with Schultz waiting nearby. Watching him leave, Reeves and the deer avatar noted quietly how much Will had grown, exactly as they had once predicted long ago. Ronan agreed, reflecting that the tiny abandoned baby they once found had grown far beyond anyone's original expectations for him. Memories drifted back to that day, Miria cradling the newborn while Ronan gruffly claimed he wanted nothing to do with raising a human child. Vandal stayed silent while Miria giggled, comparing the sleeping baby's soft cheeks to a marshmallow, cherishing the quiet moment together. Ronan grumbled to himself, muttering that he disliked small children because they were loud and greedy, his sharp eyes glinting beneath the brim of his hat. A woman with flowing silver hair carried the baby closer and told him this was the kindest child in the world, one destined to become the greatest healer. While gentle forest animals gathered to watch over the infant, Ronan stared at the baby's tiny hands. The child grabbed his finger without hesitation, and the woman asked if this small bundle could truly grow into something so great. Ronan drew his blade and declared his decision. Once the child grew older, he would place a sword in his hands and train him. Grinning fiercely, Ronan vowed to make the boy his apprentice, promising that the god of swords would forge him into a warrior worthy of the title. The healer scolded him for waving something so dangerous near the baby, insisting she had only agreed that the boy would become a healer, nothing more. Ronan argued back, demanding to know why healing suited the child better than swordsmanship, while the healer accused him of trying to raise the baby as a savage. Nearby, a robed magician chuckled at the chaos, noting the child's sharp expressions and quick wit, then wondered aloud whether he should teach the boy his magic. A giant hawk swooped down and scolded all three gods for quarreling, warning that if they kept fighting, the healer threatened to take the child and vanish to another world. Each of them explained their reasoning. The magician valued knowledge above all. The healer believed kindness would support him through life, and the swordsman insisted strength was essential for protection. The hawk suggested a compromise. Instead of choosing one path, the three gods could take turns teaching the child everything they knew. They agreed at once, deciding to raise him together, turn by turn, beneath the wide-open sky above the mountain. The gods lifted the baby together, proclaiming he would receive the grandest education imaginable, learning sword, healing, and magic all at once. Years passed as each god swore separate promises to make him the strongest magician, the temple's saint of animal healing, and the finest swordsman under the heavens. The hawk asked what gift he himself intended to give the child, addressing Ronan directly by name. Ronan later admitted he had received a revelation the moment he found the boy, believing their combined teachings would one day become tools for the child to carry into the wider world. The hawk advised letting the boy grow freely for now, insisting that raising him without restraint was the wisest choice. Years later, the boy sat beside his loyal wolf, gazing toward the horizon beyond the mountain, clearly curious about what lay past the peaks. He explained that Ronan had told him it wasn't yet his time to descend, since the world below was filled with temptation and danger. Determined, the boy declared he would become a great healing night mage, insisting he needed more training from his mother and father before that day arrived. Schulz the wolf suggested the word hero for someone who mastered swordsmanship, magic, and healing all at once, though Will hesitated, unsure such a bold title could really fit him. Will admitted he once searched his own body for a birthmark, since Father Vandal had told him heroes are always born with one, but he never found any trace of it on himself. Schulz reminded him that his father once said a hero was simply someone willing to risk their own safety to protect the defenseless, and by that meaning, Will already qualified. Schulz added that Will was already the hero of everyone living on this mountain, leaving the boy stunned as the words slowly sank in. Standing at the cliff's edge, Will shouted the declaration into the open sky, embracing the identity for the first time. With a confident grin, he called himself this mountain's hero, feeling the truth of it settle into his chest. Watching from the porch, Ronan and Vandal exchanged amused glances, joking about the boy proudly claiming the title, Hero of the Gods Mountain. Ronan and Vandal bickered playfully over who would cook dinner, both eager to spoil their beloved Will. 7 years passed. Vandal wondered aloud where Will had wandered off to, until he came running back, saying his mother had called for him. No 14, Will stood tall and ready, having reached the age when he would finally leave the mountain behind. A blind priestess knelt in prayer before the earth's great mother goddess, her lips moving in silence as light gathered around her in answer. Rising, she announced that she had received the goddess's oracle. When another priestess asked where she was headed, Lunamaria replied that she was traveling to the God's Mountain, to the place where the Lord Hero lived deep in the forest. Will sparred playfully, ducking and weaving as apples flew through the air toward him and Schulz. Catching one, he offered it to his wolf companion, and the two of them relaxed together afterward, enjoying the cool breeze drifting through the trees. Schulz remarked on how quickly Will had grown since he was small, then asked quietly whether the boy was finally leaving. Will confirmed it, saying he intended to descend the mountain and become a savior, just as Father Reyus had once told him he would. He apologized to Schulz, worried that no one would be left to protect the animals once he departed, but Schulz reassured him that the world genuinely needed someone like him. Schulz added that plenty of strong fighters remained on the mountain, including Hachi the bear, and that if trouble arose, the gods themselves could always be called upon for help. The other wolves teased Schulz about marrying, though. Schulz admitted he wished he could follow Will instead, only to be told firmly that he couldn't. Schulz reminded Will that the mountain would always be his home and that their parting wasn't permanent, thanking him warmly for everything they had shared. Carrying apples for his parents to taste, Will made his way home with Schulz until the wolf suddenly caught an unfamiliar scent, warning that someone was approaching this forbidden sacred ground. Will sensed multiple armored figures moving nearby, their breathing and clattering metal suggesting a woman was being pursued. A small bird landed on his hand, urging him to help, though Will hesitated and asked what exactly it wanted him to do. The bird insisted the woman's frightened heartbeat proved her innocence, and Will finally agreed they should go save her. He and Schulz took off running, joking that in most stories, the men chasing a woman were always the villains. The priestess, exhausted and cornered, was suddenly confronted as the armored men closed in, ready to strike. The lead knight told her she had nowhere left to run, and that this was where her life would end. Defiant, she declared her body and life belonged only to the gods she served, refusing to be claimed by barbarians like them. When she demanded to know who had sent them, the knight sneered, refusing to answer such a question. Battling back, she struck one down and shouted that if he wanted answers, he could ask her mother goddess himself on the other side. The knights closed in, snarling that she was alone, and this would be the end, furious at her earlier defiance. One raised his sword and screamed for her to die, but before the blow could land, the blade shattered against something unseen. Will and Schulz landed between her and her attackers, standing calm and unshaken, despite the chaos around them. The knights recoiled, muttering in confusion about a stupidly large wolf and a kid appearing out of nowhere, so far from any town. One knight sneered that he'd simply kill her and this newcomer together, but Will remarked to Schulz that these men were exactly the kind of villains from the old stories, admitting they didn't need to hold back. The priestess called him Lord Hero, startling Will, who asked plainly if he could handle things from here. He warned the knights this was forbidden holy ground and offered them one chance to leave, but they ordered their men to kill both intruders instead. Will noted he could cut straight through their heavy armor if he wanted, though he held back, deflecting their strikes rather than ending them outright. He darted between the knights with blinding speed, leaving them disoriented and unable to track his movements. Once the fight ended, Will turned to check on her, and she assured him she was unharmed thanks to his help, praising his performance as fantastic. Confused, she quietly asked what exactly this title Lord Hero was supposed to mean. She introduced herself as Lunamaria, a blind priestess devoted to the great mother goddess, apologizing for trespassing on the holy mountain and for failing to stop the brigands who had followed her. Will recalled that Vandal had once taught him about the Earth's mother goddess, an ancient deity said to bring fertility to the land. Lunamaria explained that her goal was to meet the youth raised by the gods of this mountain, leaving Will startled at the description. He admitted he was indeed the only human raised here, though he pointed out he had no hero's mark, prompting Schulz to bark out in surprise. Lunamaria replied softly that everything matched exactly what the Great Mother had foretold. She declared her faith in the oracle, believing the savior meant to bring harmony between good and evil was the very person raised by these gods. She explained the attackers had likely been hired by heretics who didn't want the two of them to ever meet. Will introduced Schulz as his partner, and Lunamaria marveled that he could speak with animals. While Schulz warned him to stay alert, sensing danger, Schulz cautioned that more enemies were still lurking nearby, and Will told her to be careful as tensions settled over them once again. The remaining knights pushed through the brush, furious that Lunamaria still hadn't been killed, urging each other forward with growing impatience. Their leader snarled that he would finish them both personally, while his men warned him to stay alert since the wolf and the boy traveling with him were surprisingly strong. Lunamaria noticed a magic weapon among the enemy and shouted a warning, urging Will not to lower his guard. Will stepped in front of her, telling her to stay behind him. She insisted such protection wasn't necessary, but thanked him regardless, promising to follow his lead from now on. She asked whether he intended to use fire magic, noting the air already felt like it would soon be dyed red. Will corrected her, saying the real danger wasn't the enemy's strength at all. Sensing something unnatural, he remarked that these men had brought serious trouble with them, insisting he wasn't the one responsible for the strange power surging nearby. Suddenly, a massive creature tore through the trees, sending knights flying as Will and Lunamaria stared in shock, demanding to know what such a thing was doing there. Towering before them stood a dragon covered in deep red scales, its presence freezing everyone in place. An enormous dragon suddenly dropped from the sky. Its bellow rattling the battlefield. Will observe the creature quietly while the blind cleric sensed its overwhelming existence, power, and unmatched force. The dragon narrowed its gaze, locking onto the armed troops who now trembled under its gaze. Far away, a hooded being disclosed the truth: it was pursuing the knights who had disturbed its nest. Desperate, the troops lifted their bows, trying to drive it away. But terror of failure clouded their aim. Amid their attempts, shafts bounced harmlessly off the dragon's scales. One warrior tried one magical weapon, hoping to pierce its hide. Even magical blows faltered. The dragon remained safe, its glare rising fiercer by the second. Terror overtook that troops. Panic spread while both understood they were hopelessly outmatched. Will remained steady, guarding Lunamaria, his gaze locked on the foe set to act. That dragon opened its jaws, unleashing a torrent of flames toward the escaping troops. Flames engulfed that battlefield, keeping nothing yet swirling smoke and scorched earth in their wake. One of that commanders froze, overwhelmed by that destructive force unfolding before him. Emerging out of the blaze, Will pulled two injured knights to safety, his peace appearance contrasting the chaos. He warned that kept-up defiance would only bring ruin, reminding them their lives motionless mattered to someone. With Will advanced onward, challenging the dragon directly, drawing its wrath away from the others. Doubt filled the atmosphere as troops questioned whether a boy could stand against such a creature. Undeterred, Will advanced onward using confidence, assuring those behind him he had a plan. The towering dragon loomed overhead, yet he advanced without terror, blade in grip. With wordless Will, he readied his weapon, gathering focus as shocked onlookers observed. Drawing upon teachings plus magic from his fathers, Will began fusing force into his knife. With blades readied, Will released his freezing magic mid-atmosphere, blanketing the battlefield in frost. That dragon's flames clashed using the spell, but to everyone's surprise, the fire solidified into ice, its form convulsed, cracks spreading over its scales while the temperature plummeted. Encased in shimmering ice, the once mighty creature remained frozen, silenced by overwhelming force. Witnessing that result, Will's allies stared in awe while he quietly readied for the next move. Stunned by that frozen ruin of the dragon, the troops could only gape at Will's overwhelming force. Their terror shifted to panic as they labeled him a beast, escaping without a second glance. As peace settled, the blind cleric slowly removed her veil, revealing her gaze for the first period. Using grace, Luna reintroduced herself, proclaiming their devotion to the mother goddess of earth. She moved closer, smiling softly, and asked for the hero's identity, her voice full of warmth. Using silent humility, Will finally spoke his identity, revealing only that he was human. A gentle smile followed as he shared the truth: his guardians were deities who lifted him. The cleric insisted he was motionless, a champion, fated to bring peace, as foretold by sacred prophecy. Despite their blindness, she recognized her faith, stating she couldn't see the target even if it existed. Without regret, Luna confirmed her route, having given her sight willingly in service to the goddess. Seated near his beast ally, Will listened quietly, absorbing her words with a peace gaze. Luna disclosed her heightened awareness, explaining how sound guided her actions even in blindness. Their joking tones softened the moment, hinting she had spotted more than she let on. Promising not to be one burden, she stated her readiness to join him in fight. Using palms above her heart, she asked him to travel with her and save the world together. Will admitted Will was already planning to depart, surprising the cleric who saw it as destiny. While he was willing, he expressed worry that the deities who lifted him might object. That image of the three overprotective deities surfaced in his mind, all strongly opposed to his journey. Yet one deity supported them, and the cleric vowed to secure permission on his behalf with Will. They agreed to depart together, stepping forward into the route that waited them. Will paused while the cleric reached for her mask, uncertain of her intent. Will admitted their gaze were too beautiful to hide, his words soft and sincere. Blushing, Luna agreed to maintain that mask off, her smile glowing with warmth. Using hearts aligned, they readied for the journey forward, emotions quietly stirring between them. Grip in grip, they walked forward toward the land where the deities, and Will's destiny, waited. A little avian carried news to the deities Will was returning, and he wasn't solitary. That goddess, upon hearing that, flared using emotion. She promised to judge the girl's value herself. Will leads his ally to the holy palace atop the peak, the shelter of the deities who lifted him. As they walk along the hillside route, he explains that sacred appearances are maintained with aid from creatures within the mood becomes tense. That deities sense the visitors and respond. A mighty goddess reveals herself. Radiating sacred force, the ally realizes these overwhelming figures are Will's real guardians. Will locates himself apologizing, following unintentionally intruding. Facing one maiden who serves the mother goddess, that deity Ronin questions her intent, suspicious of her appearance around Will instead of deny. She quietly acknowledges his doubts, explaining her devotion and desire to support Will. A sacred outburst erupts from the goddess, refusing to accept the young woman as Will's match. Turmoil follows, sparking one abrupt bride versus mother-in-law dispute that shocks everyone present. Lunamaria blushes while she confesses her feelings, willing to accompany Will's wish without pause. Shifted by their sincerity, Will envisions one future with her, drawing closer in a moment of connection. Peaceful atmosphere shatters when sacred outrage erupts, rejecting the possibility of their union with dramatic power. Amid that chaos, a sharp voice demands peace, revealing a mysterious avian observing the scene. That avian, Ryus, the deity of omnipotence, descends his appearance, commanding silence from all sides. Lunamaria confirms her desire to depart with Will, facing the deities with Will. Luna boldly declares this Will's fate lies beyond the peak, and she intends to support him. Will expresses their own desire to journey with Lunamaria, his first real human friend, though hesitation arises. Ryus leaves that choice in Will's palms, respecting his choice. Motionless, the deities voice worry, warning of the world's dangers and the pain of letting go. Lunamaria boldly promises to defend Will from any danger, earning astonished yet intrigued reaction. The deities, pleased by her will, agree to a condition if she and Will can pass a test. Though one goddess grumbles possessively, all three deities formally present that test. Remaining near each other, she and Will vow to overcome whatever the test may hold. That deities prepare to begin, exchanging joking remarks as Ronin urges the elder to lead with the first test. Using a flick of his glowing finger, the elder deity conjures the first test, his expression peace but unreadable. 2 cups packed of liquid materialize. Will seems told to carry one to a remote cedar tree visible on the peak. Both remain given 2 hours and one condition, no spilling a 1 drop. Comforted by Lunamaria's confidence, Will agrees, and they decide to expression the test together. That deities grant their permission. Watching as the pair sets off on their test, Will stretches to prepare as Lunamaria quietly confirms her readiness to begin the test. Using Will, he dashes forward, holding the cup cautiously as Lunamaria follows behind. Concerned, Luna warns them the water might spill from such reckless pace. To her surprise, the liquid remains perfectly motionless, steady by the motion. In sync, both extend the palms and grab each other's cup, gaze wide with shared understanding. Seeing the shaking liquid, Lunamaria suggests slowing down. Will consents, thankful for the change. Both continue at one steady pace, smiling and relaxed as woodland creatures silently watch them pass. Amid weariness, Will keeps perfect posture. Worry grows at that speed, they might not finish in period. Lunamaria hesitates. Uncertain Luna can pace up without spilling. Will proposes one risky shortcut across rough terrain, fully aware of that dangers. Determined, Lunamaria agrees she'd rather risk it than fail out of pause. Will leads Lunamaria across that rugged shortcut, helping their over obstacles with steady hands. She falters momentarily, causing Will to ask if she is all right. Although surprised, she claims she's fine. Taking a moment to pause, Will reflects on their test. Suspecting Vandal anticipated this struggle when assigning the test. Despite that strain, he remains composed, revealing that seasons of running with creatures built his stamina. When Lunamaria recalls being named their friend, the memory flusters them both, keeping hearts racing. Lunamaria smiles gently, stating this friendship using Will is the greatest honor she could receive. Curious, Will questions about others using power like his. Luna assures them this while strong people exist. None are quite like him. Abruptly, that word dragon sparks Will's memory, and both simultaneously realize the key to their test. Meantime, the deities sip tea, quietly observing the unfolding test from afar. Goddess smirks knowingly, naming out that others performing the task too difficult. That deities agree Will could have finished easily solitary, but adding Lunamaria changed everything. One goddess playfully anticipates comforting Will. As that last 5 minutes tick away, Vandal moves uneasily, questioning their chances. That elder deity urges them to look again. Will plus Lunamaria dash forward using perfect balance. The cup steady despite the pace. Both arrive simply in period, shocking Vandal as Will announces their success with a smile. Vandal seems stunned, incapable of believing Lunamaria ran the entire way alongside Will. Skeptical, Will demands to observe that water, assuming the cups must be empty after such a sprint. To everyone's surprise, that contents remain frozen, solid, untouched, and unspilled. As some inquiry the method, the elder deity laughs and confirms it's perfectly valid. Will silently clarifies he recalled freezing a dragon, applying the same trick to freeze the water. Thou will appeared in period. He hadn't handed over the cup yet, and only seconds remained. Without pause, Will made his last move, presenting the cups with steady hands. That surface of the water shimmered motionless, perfectly intact, not a one drop spilled. Elder deity took a sip and grinned in satisfaction, stating it excellent. Using confidence, they announced Will and Lunamaria had successfully cleared the first test together. Simply as the celebration began, Ronin, the deity of swords, announced his test was next. The elder deity, after some joking, activated the ritual ready for the next test. One mighty magic circle appeared under them, signaling the start of a new ordeal. Their second test was clear: defeat Ronin's enormous stone teaching golem and fight. A colossal teaching golem burst forth from the wall, summoned by two grinning men keen to test Will's power. Nearby, their allies exchange opinions. One mocks that situation while the other observes the straightforward nature of the test. Certain plus composed will express his optimism, convinced both can handle whatever awaits. Suddenly, a condition is set: he must fight the golem with only a blade. Instead of hesitate, Will accepts the limitation, doubting it will affect the result. A man declares that only the cleric present has the force to expression the looming danger, catching her completely off guard. Will, astonished, seems told he's barred from fighting, and focus shifts to evaluating the priestess's potential. Skepticism arises about their ability, but her peace expression hides no terror. Without pause, she reveals a concealed blade, asserting her task includes weapon teaching. Pleased, that man relents, signaling acceptance of her readiness without further test. The cleric is alerted she can flee, but doing so would forfeit the test, signified to prove her power and loyalty. With Will, she lunges forward, vowing to expression the test without holding spine. Will hesitates, wanting to aid there, but she strides on with confidence, keeping him behind. Resolute, Luna declares their intent to succeed, drawing focus from the observers. At the sign, the golem charges as the cleric steps into fight. The golem launches a mighty blow, smashing the earth as the cleric rapidly evades the collision without losing her focus, relying on heightened hearing to detect that golem's movements, plus stay one step forward. However, she knows that dodging solitary won't be enough to clear the test and begins preparing for a response. In a burst of pace, she closes the gap, jumping directly toward the towering foe without pause yet. While their blade lands, Luna realizes the golem's body is too solid. The golem charges with devastating power, smashing everything in its route as fragments erupts from the earth. Lunamaria stays light on their feet, dodging attacks as reevaluating their strategy with a determined gaze. Repeated strikes show no effect, keeping both spectators and Lunamaria herself asking about what more she can do. Meantime, that mage behind that test admits to pouring excessive mana into the golem. Even with her enchanted holy blade, Lunamaria finds herself incapable of sever the golem's joints. Will considers an alternative approach, considering Luna might gain power through outside support if direct attacks aren't enough. Will begins casting a spell from afar, hoping to empower Lunamaria and chance the tide of fight. Ahead of the magic can be completed, he's halted by the Ronin, who steps in with ferocious authority. Strict rules remain reinforced: no buffs, no debuffs. Solely remarks of encouragement are allowed, stripped of options. Will shouts her identity with certainty, igniting her will to press on. Frustrated, Will punches that earth plus questions his helplessness, convinced the golem must have a weak point. Will names out to Vandal, driven by desperation as Lunamaria struggles to gain the upper grip. One memory surfaces their younger self once asking about golems, unaware how vital this lesson would become. Vandal held taught this golem seemed formed from various materials and animated through magic. That key aspect returns: that activation word carved into their bodies marks their weak spot. Will recalls their master's lesson about golems: the word engraved into their body holds their existence power, and destroying part of it disables them. Will confirms the test rules, realizing he can motionless assist indirectly without breaking them. Employing analysis sorcery, Will locates the mana flow and pinpoints the magic word embedded in the golem. Will shouts clear instructions to Lunamaria, telling their when plus where to blow. Trusting their guidance, Luna attacks with precision, seeking for the weak point. Lunamaria is momentarily drew by the golem, its enormous grip pinning her down as the fight intensifies. Despite the collision, she rapidly recovers, flipping spine with sharp control and preparing for the finishing move. Using Will's cue, she times her blow perfectly, seeking directly at the engraved magic word. Their blade connects using precision, cracking the golem's surface and triggering a chain of internal collapse. While that construct crumbles in one thunderous crash, both Will and Lunamaria celebrate their hard-won victory. That Ronin commends Lunamaria's swordplay, acknowledging her efforts. Although the golem had been unusually durable, privately, Will discloses that his real goal was to test their ability to cooperate. Across the actions, he learns that Will can adapt and fight and that Lunamaria places full trust in him. Luna joyfully leaps into Will's arms, proud of her success, while others respond with teasing jealousy. Embarrassed by that moment, they apologize awkwardly, their connection quietly strengthened through the test. That Ronin praises the teamwork and declares the second test completed successfully. Using only one test remaining, anticipation builds while a new being steps forward, taking command. Grinning with intent, she contemplates the last test as dragons soar in the sky. Under a silent night sky, Will and the young woman rested near a little campfire encircled by snowy mountains. While the flames crackled, Will stirred a pot of soup while she observed silently near him. He offered her a bowl of the finished soup, and she embraced it with peace. Thanks. Both shared one meal, plus Will spoke about his cooking habits. Luna insisted on cooking next period, revealing her own skills as a cleric capable of self-sufficiency. Will mentioned the need for pause, knowing tomorrow they would expression the last testing grounds. Threat lurked forward, especially since that dragons were active at night. Abruptly, one mysterious lady appeared, preparing an unexpected task for the duo. Without notice, one command was given. She ordered them to kiss instantly. Others reacted with disbelief, asking about the bizarre nature of the test as chaos erupted around them. Will stayed frozen while Lunamaria approached, their expression hesitant and flushed with emotion. Ahead of the moment escalated, a guardian being intervened, striking the goddess for her absurd demand. Reluctantly, Luna reconsidered her test after force from the others, lamenting her faded charm. Two of that observers exchanged wide-eyed glances, stunned by what both held just heard. Overwhelmed by that realization of aging, that goddess fell, murmuring the bitter truth to herself. Will embraced the next test without pause, tasked with retrieving herbs for Miria. However, the joy rapidly faded upon learning the herbs rose only within the dangerous dragon's lair. That quest demanded one rare flower, the holy orchid, to be delivered by the next day. Undeterred, Will agreed, and Lunamaria remained near him, both set to expression the test. Without pause, they departed over the hills, resolve pushing them toward the perilous task forward. Ahead of dawn broke, Will awoke from his sleep, mentally preparing for the day forward. Will and Lunamaria journeyed toward the peak cave, sharing a silent breakfast before entering its mouth. Within, both explored the rocky route, cautiously observing the size and echo of the cavern. Will believed both seemed nearby, recalling advice about a higher entrance used by the dragons. While both mounted, he warned her about shifting dragon activity and the beast's unpredictable nature. Will and Lunamaria reached far within to the peak, believing the lair was safe and unoccupied. Despite the search, no holy orchid became found, making them to consider exploring further. Just as hope dimmed, a floral scent triggered alarm and an abrupt danger appeared from overhead. One enormous blue dragon emerged, roaring as it filled the cavern with its appearance. The creature struck without pause, shattering the earth as Will leapt into fight mid-blast. Fragments rained from overhead as Will observed in panic. Lunamaria barely shielded herself in period. Luna rapidly comforted him she was safe, while the dragon shifted its gaze toward her. In abrupt dive, the animal leapt, making Lunamaria to draw her staff in defense. Will advanced onward, gaze locked on the creature, preparing to blow with ferocious will. Using threat close, he chanted a blessing set to shield her with a protective barrier. Lunamaria yelled for Will to stop, realizing that holy orchid became nearby and at risk, disregarding the warning. Will dashed forward with incredible pace, seeking to confront the danger directly. His fist hit the cliff with a mighty strike, rattling the cavern and alarming Lunamaria. Amid swirling dust plus falling stone, he drew his blade, expression determined and steady. With a commanding voice, Will confronted the blue dragon, warning it to depart the holy peak. Using that dragon gone, Will landed safely as Lunamaria rushed to his side, relieved. He comforted her with a peace expression showing he was safe. Curious about that orchid, Luna agreed the scent and suggested they investigate the area. Both spotted that glowing flower nestled in that earth. It was the rare holy orchid. Though solely one bloomed, its glowing state formed the discovery all the more meaningful. With the holy orchid secured, Will assuredly stated their success in passing the test. Together, both gripped that flower with joy, proud of what they accomplished as a team. Knowing danger motionless lingered, they agreed to depart the lair rapidly before another dragon returned. Both exited the cavern safely, bathed in daylight and peak atmosphere once more. As Will admired Lunamaria's discovery, she insisted his bravery made him worthy of being named a dragon slayer. Will and Lunamaria readied to response, hopeful to receive the goddess's blessing with the orchid in grip. The route was interrupted by the abrupt approach of a majestic stag. Lunamaria recognized that Animal Will's ally, Max, who held come with an urgent warning across their connection. Will listened as Max disclosed something troubling. Realization hit them hard. Mother Miria had set them up, and the test held a hidden twist. Will realized the test wasn't over, and both he and Lunamaria remained worn again. Realization hit as Will and the young woman unraveled Miria's real intention. Without notice, Will shifted away, prompting the young woman to watch him closely. One rustling breeze swept across the trees as tension filled the atmosphere. Lost and considered, Will analyze that circumstance, each step deliberate. One deeper reality emerged. Max's daughter held fallen ill. Single one answer persisted. The young woman recognized the rare holy orchid found in a perilous dragon's lair as the key to saving the newborn's existence. Will asked Max regarding where the holy orchid originated. One wordless nod agreed Miria's guidance. That young woman lowered her gaze, realizing something deeper was at play as she addressed Will. Miria's motives seemed clear currently. Luna had prepared this test knowing Max's situation from the beginning. Faced using a choice, Will look the haste of Max's need. They remained at a crossroads: response, empty-handed and fail, or give the flower to Max and expression the dragon's lair again for another. Faced with haste, Will remained under the glaring sun, determined to act before period slipped away. Elsewhere, one silent corner of the shelter held signs of routine: water in a wooden bucket. Untouched, in a sunlit room, a lady swept diligently, each motion reflecting peace and kindness. Hands wrung out fabric soaked with attempt, the day's cleaning motionless in motion. Glancing up, Luna teased herself, noting how motherly she'd become despite their warrior's history. Annoyed by their dirt-covered appearance, the lady scolded the man, making him to stay outside the house. As rummaging across Will's things, that man joked about uncovering teenage secrets, though he doubted they existed. Their joking earned them a swift punishment. She hit without pause, disregarding his protests. Despite Will facing a difficult test, one lady remained smug, certain in the result. Ronan, unmoved, confirmed their belief defeating a dragon was effortless for someone like Will. Tension stood as Ronan demanded replies from Miria, sensing a hidden layer to her test. Miria silently clarified the doe situation, insisting the orchid was truly needed, yet her smirk disclosed more. Thou that flower became accessible. That deeper they searched, the greater the danger from lurking dragons. Miria recognized the period limit would stop Will from going too far, especially with allies near him. On that upper levels, only a one orchid could be found, just enough for one existence. Miria observed using one sly smile, convinced Will's kindness would compel him to give up the orchid. While she readied the room, she failed to notice his silent intent. The debate flared. Luna accused them of underestimating Will, while he insisted letting go would make Will stronger. Will remained upright. With Will in his gaze, he was set to walk his own route. Amid the price, Lunamaria consented. One ally and require couldn't be ignored. Her flower could pass to Max. Moment was fading fast. The trial's result rose uncertain, yet Will expressed silent thanks. Determined, Will tore forward, choosing to descend solitary into the lair's dangerous depths. That deeper Will went, the more hope he held of finding the orchids that could save a existence. Lunamaria declined to allow him pass alone. Despite that risk, Luna insisted on following them. Using assurance, she alerted Will it was her sense that had found the first orchid she could do it again. Will secured the orchid pouch tightly onto Max's torso, smiling as he readied the buck for leaving. Spotted Max's injured legs plus gently insisted that father prioritize his daughter instead of rushing again. Will questioned for one thing in response: see them again. Safe and well. The stag raced fast, both observed, knowing it was finally their period to act. Without pause, Will lifted Lunamaria in his arms, set to expression the depths of the lair together. Lunamaria gasped, astonished plus flustered in Will's arms as they dashed forward. Will silently clarified their method: traveling the wind would get them there faster, if she just held on. Near each other, they exchanged a nod of resolve together. Both seemed set to finish what they started. Their pace surged. Using one shout, Will launched forward into the lair spine's shelter. Miria observed the sky fondly, preparing something warm for their response, confidence hidden behind a soft smile. Will plus Lunamaria emerged victorious, having cleared the test through power, courage, and compassion. Miria waited beside the entrance, casually drinking, while the others sensed the period for Will's response was near. Their thoughts, however, seemed clouded. Using emotion, solitary beyond, Miria sat silently. Though others talked quietly, Luna couldn't hide her sadness. Will's leaving motionless lingered in their heart. That elder recognized that truth. Will could not remain sheltered. Will became signified to fly free. One stride crushed the silence. Someone had returned. Will remained smiling. Near a young woman, flowers in grip. "I'm Spine," Will stated. Warm sunlight plus a falling leaf welcomed Will's response. One soft voice greeted him, "Shelter." His father admired his power, pleased by his growth. The young woman near him offered holy orchids with a bright smile. Abruptly, Miria rushed in plus tackled Will with a mighty hug, catching everyone off guard. Will blushed while Luna clung to them. Worry packed their gaze, though she masked it with questions. With soft comfort, Miria grinned. That strain faded while joy settled in their hearts. Will listened while the young woman explained she had treated the injured doe. Comfort brightened their expression. Meantime, an elder gently pressed Miria, hinting Luna became hiding something important. That reality emerged. Will had retrieved holy orchids from a dragon's lair, a feat that left even Miria stunned. Realization hit. He had elapsed the third test, and joy sparked in his companion's gaze. Overhead them, one familiar bird soared. Will saluted. "Father, reuse," Will named. Spirit full from overhead. The sacred bird spoke, affirming it had seen every moment of Will's trials. One major choice became announced. Will would depart in 10 days, on the day he turns 15. Miria, ever poised, informed Will plus his ally to wash up. One feast waited them at Shelter. Despite their grace, whispers disclosed. Their cooking's odd taste, herbs ruining even the aroma. Yet Will remained completely unconcerned. With a certain grin, the man assured them he'd also readied food, asking Will to simply pause. Lunamaria's gaze sparkled with joy as she responded to with Will. Everyone mustered to eat, drink, plus share stories, cherishing that peaceful moment. As the dinner finished, weariness set in. Will appeared out at that moonlit heavens, reflecting. While Miria rested quietly, that next dawn Will trained using Father Ronin. In that library, another teacher encouraged Will to sharpen his mind. Wisdom would soon matter as much as power. Will questioned for book recommendations, yet shortly panicked under the overwhelming stack handed to him. Using one piece smile, Father Vandal offered wisdom instead of apology. Learning was about discernment, not volume. Will enjoyed one silent bath beneath the stars, finally allowing himself to relax. Unexpectedly, Miria appeared, declaring her intent to aid him wash, her tone both teasing and bold. Will flailed in surprise, insisting Will became almost an adult. Miria solely grinned, joking his reaction gently. Will shyly credited their handmade shampoo plus endless cosmetic advice. Using one soft smile, she urged him to take kindness of himself once his journey began. He nodded. She remembered to him that their peak would always be his shelter, no matter how far he traveled. Afterward, Will spent period with friends and Lunamaria, exploring the realm he had older up in together. Both enjoyed the woodland, fruits, rivers, and breeze, each moment deepening their love for the peak. Will and Lunamaria spent their last day encircled by woodland creatures, saying their silent goodbyes. 10 days after his test, Will remained before his protectors, readied and determined. On their 15th birthday, Will heard blessings from those who lifted him. Using assurance and a smile, he departed to discover the world beyond the peak. That sunlight pierced through the woodland canopy as Will named out to Lunamaria. Moving near her, he admitted to simply following her lead since they left the peak. Lunamaria disclosed it was her first period descending as well, but confirmed their goal had purpose. She explained they were motionless in the woodland nearby the sacred peak. Their goal lay forward at the edge of the kingdom's woodland, where the Earth Mother's guidance waited them, the holy blade. Will became excited upon seeing the legendary blade embedded far within a woodland boulder. Just as he had read in old tales, Lunamaria agreed the legend only the blade champion could draw it. Luna believed the journey was guided by sacred intent. As they kept up, Lunamaria suggested Will might be fated to wield the holy blade. Realizing that route was long, they agreed to pause in a nearby village before continuing onward. Will admitted he'd solely just found humans, but remained keen as they traveled north through remote paths. Will assuredly mustered food along the way, boasting his survival skills as Lunamaria followed behind. Nearby, a young woman sat peacefully by the lake, fishing solitary with a carefree smile. Abruptly, rustling bushes surprised her, prompting a wary glance and steady grip on her rod. In a panic, she yelled fiercely into the trees. Set to defend herself from any danger, the young woman froze in surprise, realizing actual people had appeared before her far within the forest. Relieved, Luna chuckled nervously and admitted they had surprised her while she was peacefully fishing. They rested jointly by the water, exchanging stories. Luna expressed surprise at encountering others in such a remote land. With a cheerful tone, she shared her quest to test the lake's ruler for her blade champion. Remaining happily, she stated herself a faithful follower of the legendary blade champion, full of certainty. The young woman remained frozen in astonishment, stunned by the abrupt appearance of strangers advancing her fishing spot. Laughter rapidly followed her surprise as she relaxed, realizing they signified no harm. They sat together near the water, exchanging introductions and astonished to meet someone so far within the woodland. With bright excitement, she explained her quest to defeat the lake's king in honor of her champion. Full of confidence, she boldly stated herself a devoted follower of the legendary Blade Champion. Will listened intently, expressing interest in encounter the legendary Blade Champion given of with such devotion. The young woman explained the champion wasn't present but was waiting for her at the forest's edge. Despite being solitary, she remained certain trusted by her champion to handle the quest independently. Determined, Luna cast their line, resolved to fulfill the hopes placed upon her. Abruptly, the water erupted. Something enormous had brought the bait. Abrupt Tug agreed it. This overwhelming power could only belong to the lake's legendary ruler. Out of the water burst an enormous fish, its size stunning all who observed. Will and the young woman observed on in awe. The animal, Koitaru, dwarfed them both. Despite warnings, Luna gripped tight to that rod, refusing to let go. Her resolve was brief-lived as the creature flung her far into the atmosphere. As the young woman was pulled closer to the water, terror held her. She feared she'd be swallowed whole. Desperately clinging to faith, she cried out for the Blade Champion to save her. At that instant, Will dashed forward with Will, jumping into motion without pause. In one blink, Will drew her midair, gently lifting her from danger as she marveled at him. Overwhelmed, Luna burst into thankful tears, shouting a sincere thank you. Lynx, flustered yet sincere, expressed their wish to repay Will. Luna examined her broken rod and realized her try to catch Koitaru had truly failed. The fish's size much too great. With a sigh, she embraced defeat, choosing to respond to the champion but greeted Will and Lunamaria's offer to accompany her. Formal introductions followed. Lynx openly disclosed who she was. As they walked together under the woodland canopy, Lynx confirmed her role, happily now calling herself a follower of Lord Will. One lady rushes towards a young warrior, alarmed by danger. One goblin charges, weapon lifted, but the boy reacts rapidly. Additional goblin emerge, enraged by their fallen comrade. Both surround that area, snarling and set to attack. Nearby, one party of girls cheer passionately, praising the champion and urging him to defeat the goblins. Remaining tall, the champion remains composed, taunting the goblins' ignorance of his power. He faces the advancing horde quietly, stating they won't depart alive. The warrior advanced onward with confidence, drawing his blade and stating himself the Blade Champion. Excited cheers remained out of behind as he faced the danger directly. His appearance solitary shifted the battlefield, raising hopes of unmatched power as he readied to unleash his force. Levine, the Blade Champion, remained fearlessly before a horde of monsters, her blade ready with steady confidence. Will appeared at the scene with his ally, astonished to witness Levine's readiness and resolve. Out of that sidelines, a group of girls cheered loudly, their excitement echoing through the battlefield. Will rushed towards a familiar being, Lynx, relieved to locate them safe after the encounter. Reunited, Lynx grinned brightly, keen to share what they had just witnessed with wide-eyed excitement. Will presented Levine, the Blade Champion he followed, describing him as a peace yet elegant young warrior. One of that girls eagerly admired Levine's unmatched swordsmanship, claiming his blade could cut through stone with ease. Levine, undisturbed by the enemy's numbers, advanced onward and ready to retaliate for the interruption. Cheers out of a devoted group encircled him, while Will quietly recognized Levine's reputation, poised plus ready. Levine taunted their foes, challenging them to blow first. Rushing forward, Levine released one sweeping attack that stunned the goblin forces around him. One goblin dared to look them straight, raising its blade with trembling hands. Using swift, fluid strikes, Levine cut across foes, outpacing their reactions with ease. Observers observed in awe while goblins fell rapidly, overwhelmed by their unrelenting assault. Amidst that turmoil, Levine's expression shifted, surprise replacing confidence as something unexpected drew his eye. Will studied Levine's style carefully. Although perfect, something about it seemed troubling. Despite that elegant movements, an uneasy sensation rose stronger within Will as he observed. Abruptly, goblins launched one barrage of arrows, making Levine into a defensive stance. He rapidly deflected the projectiles, shouting with irritation as foes pressed in. Goblins swarmed them out of all sides, grappling onto his limbs and disrupting his rhythm. While Levine grabbed a direct hit, a voice cried out his identity. Out of the trees, hidden archers kept trying to fire relentlessly. Ahead of the next arrow could Will moved in, deflecting it in a swift motion that stunned Levine. Their gaze found Levine was speechless while Will remained peace, concentrated completely on the danger forward. Together, they moved spine to spine, seamlessly fending off incoming attacks as onlookers observed in astonishment. Yet the moment elapsed rapidly. Levine shifted their blade towards Will. Will presented himself nervously, claiming Will had only followed Lynx while Levine questioned his motives. Astonished by Will's bold claim to defend him, Levine paused but allowed it temporarily. Their teamwork faltered as Levine rushed forward, irritated by Will's appearance. Observing closely, Will realized Levine's blade style missed awareness of rear attacks. Seizing the opportunity, Will hit rapidly from behind, eliminating threats that slipped Levine's guard. Will's fluid, unpredictable blade movements drew everyone off guard, including Levine, who could hardly believe what Will saw. Spectators murmured in astonishment while Will's appearance stirred both admiration and irritation among the crowd. Some started to recognize their power, praising not just his swordsmanship but his magic as well, cheering for his swift victories. As the goblins panicked, Levine fumed internally, annoyed by Will's abrupt interference and unexpected dominance. While turmoil unfolded, one towering goblin approached Levine from behind. As Will kept up carving through foes, Levine remained motionless, overwhelmed by the boy's raw pace and efficiency. Spectators misread the scene, assuming Levine had hit the goblin down in a moment, praising their supposed hero's quick motion. Seizing the praise, Levine lifted her blade far, basking in focus while hiding her uncertainty under a proud smile. Yet uncertainty crept in, their grin cracked as disbelief settled in. What Luna held simply witnessed felt far beyond her skill. Will's approach held disclosed something frightening. Levine gazed toward Will with clear astonishment. Despite being younger, Will displayed abilities Luna couldn't match abilities. She couldn't even try. As Will walked quietly over the battlefield, the goblins trembled, retreating away without a fight. Encircled by foes, Will advanced using confidence. She yelled in irritation as the goblins began retreating, unwilling to express them any longer afterward. While Luna presented Will and Lunamaria to the group, Levine forced a smile, masking her annoyance behind formal praise. Lynx apologized silently, explaining Luna failed to catch that giant Koitaru during her task, regarded there with a sharp comment, calling her useless. Though Lynx disclosed Will had rescued her from danger, hearing that, Will challenged Levine. Angered, this Luna ignored Lynx's near-death experience. She supporters reacted defensively, accusing Will of disrespecting their champion, but one young woman boldly defended his words. Gaze narrowing, Levine drew her blade, not anymore hiding her irritation. Levine pointed their blade at Will, insisting a duel to settle their rising tension directly. A blonde warrior stands before Will and challenges him to a duel, stating the start of a fight with the blade champion. Will hears, composed yet resolved, free of pause. Will accepts the match. His gaze reflects steady Will as he prepares for battle. Simply ahead of the fight begins, Lunamaria rushes over and stops Will. Luna urgently draws them aside to speak with him. She warns him of the opponent's power but will remain certain, reminding her that he was trained by the blade deity. Nearby others observe cautiously, concerned this an easy win might provoke future trouble from the prideful blade champion. Although he considers declining the test, the blade hero's resolve overrides his doubts, and he strongly decides to accept the duel. While Will moves away using confidence, he reassures Lunamaria that he has a plan. Behind them, the impatient blade champion demands an answer. Drawing their blade, Will eventually declares their acceptance. He's keen to express the test and uncover the truth behind his opponent's power. Tension rises as the blade champion mocks Will, yet an unshakable sense of unease about his appearance starts to grow. Without pause, the blade champion charges. Will meets that attack directly and the duel erupts into motion. The blade champion launched a ferocious overhead blow, making Will to respond rapidly under force. A devastating strike broke the earth between them, but Will dodged in period, keeping gap while studying his opponent's movements. Despite that pace of that attack, Will barely avoided a direct hit, staying agile under the barrage. With quick reflexes, he sealed a mighty swing, surprising the blade champion, who underestimated Will's power. Spectators observed in awe as the blade champion released a rapid flurry of strikes, testing Will's guard with unending power. Lunamaria reassures others with a peace smile, trusting in Will's power and will even amid the chaos. While the fight continues, Will begins to read the rhythm of the fight, gradually adapting to his opponent's method. Flashes of their early teaching surface, memories of Father Ronan's harsh yet formative lessons come to mind, sharpening his focus. During those days, Will struggled using distraction, often scolded for not fully committing to that blade despite his attempt. No, the meaning of real conflict echoes in his mind. Battles are not only tests of power, but of steady certainty. Father Ronan's mighty blow swept history Will during teaching, giving not just power but insight. In his severe voice, Ronan drilled the essence of fight into Will to fight with purpose, to wield every emotion and promise as power. Afterward, Will fell in exhaustion, overwhelmed by that fight. Yet despite trembling limbs, Will seemed one deeper understanding of his opponent's intent through the sword's edge. Will could sense the Blade Hero's rising irritation and emotional storm masked behind sharp movements and aggression. Confusion consumed the Blade Champion as his flawless techniques were read and answered. Will's piercing look unsettled them. Not because of power, but because it laid bare every doubt in his soul. A mighty strike dispatched Will crashing into the earth, dust rising as the Blade Champion readied to end the match. Yet, despite heavy breaths plus scratches, Will remained anew. The Blade Champion, seeing the attempt, admitted defeat with silent dignity. Reflecting on their actions, the Blade Champion confessed to being overwhelmed by emotion earlier, particularly during the goblin skirmish that clouded his judgment. Meantime, observers admired the result, believing it a victory for the champion. Greatest stayed unaware of Will's subtle control throughout that fight. Internally, Will remembered lessons out of his mentors. That duel had been like one test, a strategy mirroring a chess game. Abrupt warn from the Blade Champion disrupted the group's pause. Goblins approached the camp, making them to stay on guard. Using clear disdain for their current location, the Blade Champion demanded the camp be moved, unwilling to sleep among the slain creatures. Commands seemed rapidly issued, and the team sprang into motion. Meantime, Will became questioned about his next move, his mind already set. Will disclosed his plan to head toward the northern border in search of a holy blade. Using farewells exchanged, Will and his companions ready to part ways. One steady handshake marked that end of their encounter. Mutual regard lingered in the remarks as they wished each other well. Nightfall blanketed that camp while that group settled down in a clearing, the tent pitched under a sky full of stars. One of that girls cheerfully announced this dinner became ready. That meal, one hearty hot pot using dried meat and wild herbs, was served alongside grilled cheese skewers. That Blade Hero's expression softened at the sight of the food, visibly pleased by how appetizing it looked. Jokingly, Will questioned the girls to feed him as a prize for the day's efforts. Chuckling, both indulged him, joking that he was acting spoiled. Laughter kept up as the girls playfully competed for the opportunity to be the first to serve him. With laughter and confidence, the Blade Champion allowed himself to be pampered, stating he'd depart everything to his companions for the night. However, pause eluded that champion under the silent night sky. He wandered solitary through the woodland, far within thought, his steps heavy with unease. Despite their cheerful words earlier, pain ran far, his hands were motionless, numb, and he couldn't even grip a spoon. Thoughts about Will continued haunting him. Someone who could use blade flash using such mastery held appeared out of nowhere, seeking solitude. The Blade Champion bathed under the stars, letting the cool water ease his aching body. Moonlight shimmered over the water as the Blade Champion bathed in silence, the woodland nearby her glowing softly with falling petals. A target on her torso, the blade's stigmata, glowed faintly. It was evidence of her identity, not just a warrior, but the destined Blade heroine. Memories of tragedy remained. Their father died disobeying command, plus her mother's noble house was destroyed. To restore their family's honor, she cast aside her womanhood, choosing to live as a man under the weight of the blade. Yet, under her power lay terror and self-doubt. A young woman burdened by hopes she not anymore believed she could fulfill. Motionless, soaking in the water, the Blade heroine gazed upward, her expression peace yet pensive under the moonlight. Memories of Will moved in her thoughts. If Will genuinely sought the holy blade, then perhaps his journey held more meaning than she first assumed. Reaching towards that glowing moon, she questioned her own limits, wondering if she, too, could become stronger by claiming that same force. Elsewhere, footsteps pressed inside fresh grass while dawn approached, marking the continuation of a new journey. From a hilltop, Will remained with Lunamaria, set to expression what lay beyond the horizon. Will plus his companions began their journey along the peak route, heading northward toward the town of Northwood and new challenges. Will remains ahead of a vast open road, hearing it is the way to Northwood. That route stretches distant, unfamiliar, and exciting. Will reflects on how fresh that is to him. Lifted in that mountains, roads like that never existed, only animal trails and narrow passes. While both pass across a village, Will marvels at its charm. He's astonished by how developed that route is, something he's never seen before. Lunamaria observes that worn route, pointing out signs of trade plus traffic. That route displays marks from wheels and hooves. One carriage appears out of the side of Northwood, kicking up dust. Will watches while it speeds history, hinting at further to come. Without notice, that carriage sped dangerously nearby. Will instantly leapt forward, pulling Lunamaria out of harm's method. That vehicle raced history them, splashing water as it barely missed. Lunamaria's expression froze in surprise as she realized what almost happened. As the dust settled, Will and the others observed the carriage vanish far away. Through its window he spotted a young woman inside signaling for aid. Recalling that glimpse of that covered wagon, Will mentioned the strange appearance of dangerous individuals inside. The party consented to inspect, receiving Lunamaria's wordless praise. Will readied himself to go. Luna nodded strongly. Trusting his judgment without pause, Lunamaria urged Will to follow his judgment. Her peace words gave him the will to act without pause, following asking her to stay behind and look after their belongings. Will shifted his focus toward the carriage that had already disappeared from sight. Fueled by haste, he launched himself into the atmosphere with mighty power, gaze fixed on the route forward. While soaring overhead the trees, Will scanned the terrain and rapidly spotted the vehicle, veering off the road and into the woodland. Without pause, Will adjusted his course and dove toward the forest, determined to catch up before it was too late. Inside the carriage, a frightened young woman trembled as the vehicle thundered through the woodland. Luna called for aid, her voice barely heard. Abruptly, that door burst open with power. The captors were brought by surprise as panic spread among them. One of the men recognized the young woman, linking her to the Anaheim steady. His expression shifted hostile as he advanced onward. Will reached out quietly, stating Luna had to come with them. Their tone stayed cold, treating that situation like routine work. Ahead of he could act, a flash overhead the carriage drew everyone's focus. Alarm replaced assurance while something unexpected appeared. Landing atop that moving carriage, Will agreed his choice. Advancing out of the atmosphere had proven to be the right move. He wasted no period facing the foes. The surprised thug demanded replies, but Will quietly stated he had flown there. With a one strike, Will dispatch the man flying out of the carriage, neutralizing him before he could respond further. Entering rapidly through the window, Will found the frightened young woman inside. Luna gazed at them with disbelief. After presenting himself, Will gently comforted her. Will held come to save her just as she had hoped someone would. Karen agreed the assailants from the previous wagon were pursuing her. Terror lingered in her gaze as she remembered the danger. In desperation, Luna disclosed their identity. While that daughter of the Anaheim household, she had been ambushed mid-quest and forced to flee. Will gently comforted reassuring their safety currently that he was present. Their peace demeanor aided ease her panic. Suddenly glass broke. A bolt from a crossbow hit through the carriage window, barely failing them both. The pair glanced toward the outside from the broken glass. Will agreed the danger was motionless nearby and watching. Assailants rose impatient while both searched. Despite strict commands to capture the young woman alive, tension among them escalated. Within that carriage, Will plus Karen stayed low. One assailant demanded to board personally, prompting Will to consider their next action. Peeking across that window, Will assessed the foe. Will started considering of a way to separate and stop them. Their gaze narrowed upon noticing that unconscious coachman, that horses held panic due to that man's collapse. Realizing neither of them could steer, Will plus Karen faced one fresh problem controlling a runaway carriage amid rising danger. Will disclosed one scheme. On his flight earlier, he spotted something forward that could change the situation in their favor. Beyond, the foes ready to close in. One of them yelled instructions, certain they were closing the gap. Ahead of they could respond, Will kicked the door open and launched himself directly at them, catching them off guard. Will spun midair plus hit with precision. Their strike disrupted the formation, scattering the riders. Currently mounted on a horse, Will took control, set to lead the charge and take spine full control of the chase. Will talks quietly to that horse, asking it to keep running for the safety of its unconscious rider. That carriage races forward, its wheels thundering against the dirt road as it hurtles through the woodland, pursued from behind. Within, another wagon. Mercenaries argue while that situation escalates. Will, observing out of a gap, notes that their actions are unfolding exactly as he anticipated. From far overhead, Will surveys the route. His scouting confirms the carriage's position and what lies directly the peak trail. He spots a lethal cliff looming far away. Determined to stop disaster, Will rapidly devises a new tactic to intercept the carriage before it reaches the drop. Will deliberately slows their speed, baiting that pursuing mercenaries to accelerate in order to close the gap. At that perfect moment, Will orders the horse to chance. That abrupt maneuver causes that carriage to veer sharply, destabilizing the chase and disrupting their formation near the cliff's edge. The fighters, ignorant of the ground, press forward recklessly. One of them abruptly notices that danger and shouts too late, pointing frantically at what lies forward. The wagon crashes across the unstable earth. That horses plus riders are flung into the atmosphere as the entire vehicle plunges over the cliff. Out of a safe gap, Will watches in silence as the danger is eliminated. Will kneels near the wounded man, with his curing magic to stabilize his condition. A young woman praises Will's incredible curing skills. Will modestly answers, thanking his mother, Miria, for teaching him. As Will turns away, the young woman reflects on his kindness and power. Her admiration deepens as she views him as her champion, thankful for his timely save. Afterward, the young woman clings tightly to Will on the carriage bench, clearly smitten. Both ride across that countryside together in peaceful silence. Will suggests Luna sit within for comfort, but she insists on staying near him. Their fondness seems obvious, while Will tries to hide his flustered reaction. As the carriage continues on its route, Will spots a familiar being advancing. That woman's assertive power instantly reminds them of his adoptive mother, Miria. The lady joyfully greets him. She is Lunamaria, a cleric of Mother Earth and Will's traveling ally. Karen, motionless, clinging to Will, instantly questions their identity. To Karen's surprise, Lunamaria presented herself as Will's future bride. Karen, flustered yet bold, claims Will, while her fated husband, Lunamaria, invites Karen to meet their father at one mansion. But Karen rapidly declines, stating they are in a hurry. Shifting the focus, Lunamaria reminds everyone of their actual quest to locate the Holy Blade hidden in the Northwood woodland. Drew by surprise, Will and Lunamaria respond to Karen's abrupt insistence on her proposal. Using one composed look, she reveals her background. Her family runs the Anaheim Merchant House in Northwood. Claiming authority, Karen announces that the woodland holding the Holy Blade falls under her household's ownership, making the others to reconsider their approach. A carriage traveled along a silent route, its wheels clattering steadily as it carried its passengers toward their next goal. Within, two women joyfully talked about one nearby restaurant, praising its blueberry tart and atmosphere. Will grinned, hearing to their enthusiasm. As the journey kept up, tension stood between the two girls, both vying to be by Will's side. Drew between them. Will silently questioned how Will ended up in such one situation. To restore order, Will strongly told them to sit at the spine and look after the coachman, stopping their argument. Silence plus frustrated, that two girls sat silently, arms crossed, pouting in synchronized defeat. Urgent voices packed that carriage as the girls spotted the coachman's worsening condition. Their form trembled, drenched in sweat, and his breathing rose heavy with fever. Will examined that circumstance quietly. Despite that injury, he agreed there was no poison, but the man's power was fading due to significant blood loss. Reaching inside his supplies, Will handed a little item to Lunamaria, instructing her to administer it rapidly. After confirming it was a trusted medicine made with sacred knowledge, Lunamaria named for Karen's aid to begin treatment. Using grand kindness, the girls supported the coachman as he slowly swallowed the potion. Their conditions started to stabilize under their watchful kindness. Lunamaria gazed at Will using admiration, pleased by his peace, composure, and medical skill. Karen flushed, stunned by the awareness of his many talents. Zone of the girls connected his mother's identity to a mighty goddess from the mountains, keeping them both in awe. Sitting silently on that carriage, Will admitted his history. Though he was merely a youngster brought in by the deities, he had been lifted by three sacred figures. Curious about the goal, Will questioned about Northwood. That girls eagerly clarified it became a walled city on the northern edge of the kingdom. Northwood, famous for its busy trade, welcomed travelers of all races. Karen remembered their recent strike while traveling for business. Despite their escorts, that ambush arrived unexpectedly. Luna expressed far thanks, knowing Will had saved her. Will inquired about how safe the country was. Lunamaria clarified this Madonia became generally secure and seldom saw such incidents. Karen clarified this attacks on women seemed uncommon due to frequent patrols and checkpoints, making her ambush all the more unusual. With sincerity, she requested to accompany Will into the Holy Blade woodland, giving her support in response for his aid. As Will lifted the legendary blade far, Karen observed with sparkling gaze, believing this moment would be recalled in history. Lunamaria struggled with her thoughts, drew between her faith and a rising desire to be spotted by Will instead of the cleric. Will remembered encounter Levine, the renowned blade champion. In the woodland, uncertainty lingered. Could Levine genuinely be the one to draw the holy blade? Meantime, Karen appeared on that coachman, relieved to see his complexion improving, a clear sign that the treatment had worked. Pleased using that progress, Will suggested continuing the journey northward. At the current speed, both would reach the city by the next day. While that carriage came to a halt, Will moved out cautiously. Something forward drew his focus, and his expression sharpened with focus. A squad of mounted troops rushed down the road, shouting for the carriage forward to stop instantly. Will reacted rapidly, pulling that reins with worry. The armed men dismounted and encircled the area, raising their arms cautiously. Their captain gestured ahead, signaling the others to prepare for confrontation. Will rapidly dropped from the carriage to assess the situation. set to defend if needed. Strain packed the atmosphere as he approached them directly. A distinguished man named Johann advanced onward, claiming the carriage served to the Anaheim steady. Karen emerged, astonished yet relieved to observe Johann following, confirming their safety. Will explained they had all been searching for her since the attack report. Johann almost hit Will in a fit of misunderstanding, believing him to be one of the assailants. Following hearing that reality, Johann's expression softened. Will offered their sincere thanks to Will and his companions for protecting Lady Karen during the ordeal. Karen insisted on inviting Will and the others to her residence as a gesture of gratitude, explaining their journey involved business at the Holy Blade Woodland. Observing that state of the damaged carriage, Johann arranged for a replacement and offered an escort to ensure their safe travel forward. Using a respectful goodbye, Johann dispatched them off. Will, Lunamaria plus Karen resumed their journey to Northwood with peace, resolve, and renewed purpose. As the carriages kept trying toward their goal, a remote scream pierced the peace. One arm fell limp, signaling something held gone terribly wrong elsewhere. Distant away, Miria slumped above one table, overwhelmed with emotion. Despite their sacred status, Luna remained deeply affected by Will's absence. One of that deities attempted to comfort her, noting that Will's journey should be progressing smoothly. Will believed that youth would soon arrive in the city. The bearded elder grinned, certain that Will had been well ready to handle adversity. Again in the wagon, Lunamaria noticed something unusual. Luna teased that a young woman might be getting close to Will, just as Northwood came into view. As traveling in that carriage, the group discussed Rias's absence. None of them held noticed them lately, but they remained unconcerned. As the carriage neared the city gates, they finally appeared at Northwood, the land where the Holy Blade waited. That city's towering gate loomed in silence, its portcullis half lifted while sunlight touched the stone walls. Near the entrance, troops remained unworn while a carriage rolled up the route. Within, one wide-eyed youth stared through the window, taking in the unfamiliar sight. Crossing that threshold, that carriage clattered above cobbled streets, entering the heart of the settlement. Northwood disclosed itself while one bustling city, its roads alive with color and people. Will, stepping out, grabbed their first breath of city atmosphere. Masses packed each corner, voices overlapping. It became further noise plus motion than he had ever known. Will listened cautiously as the young woman mentioned visiting her father first, concerned for his peace of mind. That city's bustle hadn't dulled their sense of task. Luna clarified that her father was probably at the mansion on the town's outskirts. Using one grin, she proposed they head there instead. Along that method, Will spotted a being in the crowd who seemed oddly familiar. The moment elapsed rapidly, keeping him uncertain. Shortly following, the mansion came into view, huge and imposing, framed by clean stone and tall windows. A servant hurried out upon their return. Will paused briefly, then followed the young woman inside without pause. Upon entering the mansion, staff welcomed the young woman with relief, informing her that her father waited her in the reception room. Luna nodded casually, brushing off their father's concern. Elsewhere, their response became announced to the master of the house. Amazed by that news, Will reacted with visible emotion. Seconds afterward, the young woman rushed through the door, only to be drew an abrupt, tearful embrace from her overwhelmed father. Will clung to her tightly, sobbing with exaggerated relief, while she struggled to stay upright under his grip. Will viewed the moving moment in silence. Introductions seemed about to begin as focus faced toward him and his companions. The man presented himself as Victor Anaheim, owner of the Anaheim Company and father of the young woman named Karen. Using one warm smile, he greeted them and requested a full account of what had occurred. While everyone settled inside that lounge, Victor listened intently. Their look darkened upon hearing that the assailants had targeted his daughter. Focus shifted to Will, the boy from the mountains, as it was disclosed he had thwarted the kidnapping try on his own. Victor paused, then sipped their tea quietly before turning to Will with serious gaze. Without notice, he yelled an inquiry, insisting to know if Will could truly bring happiness to Karen. Karen abruptly stated their wish to marry Will, catching both him and her father off guard. Victor imagined that scene using dramatic delight, already embracing the idea. Though astonished, Victor shifted attention to that saint accompanying Will, asking if she had any concerns about the story so far. Certain in their judgment, Victor spoke happily of his success as a merchant, stating his ability to assess people's character accurately. Will admired Will's abilities, acknowledging this only someone pure of heart could have saved Karen. The saint's appearance, he said, was evidence of Will's sincerity and sacred ties. Overwhelmed by that faith placed in him, Will grinned gently, moved by the acceptance and faith shown by Victor. That saint alerted Victor, their visit wasn't just social, they had a purpose in town. Victor recognized their goal involved the holy blade but encouraged them to pause. Will, mindful of that recent ordeal, agreed to postpone the quest for now. To show thanks, that head maid assembled that servants and offered full hospitality. One bath had been readied for Will before dinner. Will became led to an elegant bathing chamber. Karen, flustered, was guided to different to prevent complications. Soaking in warm liquid will seem that tension melt away. He considered quietly on his journey, thinking of the deities who lifted him and wondering how they were doing. Steam remained while Lunamaria rinsed herself in that bath. Peace plus composed, she moved with practiced ease, unmoved by her surroundings. Karen, sitting nearby, questioned if she sought aid. Lunamaria declined, content using grabbing kindness of herself as she always had. Karen admitted she'd older employed to traveling independently using will. Their sharp gaze, she claimed, spotted more than others assumed. Two there, bathing together, symbolized far faith, something only shared between those truly close. While Lunamaria soaked silently, Karen watched her being with mixed thoughts, wondering just how far her connection with Will had progressed. Karen glanced at herself, noting their being with confidence, despite some self-conscious thoughts about indulging too much lately. Abruptly, she splashed water and stated a competitive test toward Lunamaria. Brought by surprise, Lunamaria offered a silent, puzzled response. Afterward, that two moved out dressed formally. Will plus Lunamaria seemed now wearing elegant clothes readied by Victor, which fit perfectly. Will admitted their nerves, yet Lunamaria remained peace. To their noble halls plus ruins seemed equally unfamiliar. There was little difference in how she approached either. Blushing but earnest, praised Will's appearance. Their soft remarks lingered, bringing a rare smile to Will's expression. Karen twirled in their fresh dress, her gaze sparkling with excitement. Luna questioned Will for their opinion, and his awkward but honest compliment made her beam. Simply beyond that dining room, the head maid politely invited Will and Lunamaria to enter, the doors opening with ceremony. Within, that table was set with kindness. Victor greeted them using one warm smile, asking if they were feeling rested. Chairs seemed drew out while each guest was guided to their seats. Will became offered a prominent land near Victor at the head of the table. As servants started pouring drinks, one cat-eared maid approached Will and offered him a glass. Suspicion sparked in their gaze while she stared at the swirling liquid. Something felt wrong. Victor lifted their glass, grinning as he offered a toast. The mood became strained. Will stayed abruptly, stating that drink poisoned. Surprise spread across that room as he exposed the hidden danger at the table. Surprise washed above the man's expression as he realized the sinister truth behind the drink. With steady hands, Will held the goblet while a young woman fell nearby, drawing gasps from the onlookers, rising out of his seat. He delivered a peace verdict and attempted abduction followed by deliberate poisoning. Gratitude to seasons of teaching from his mother, Will had mastered the art of detecting and neutralizing toxins. By observing that drink's muddy texture, grape tint, plus masking aroma, he rapidly determined the poison's exact nature. One of the women moves ahead, requesting Will's drink to investigate it herself. Another young woman confirms the unusual aspect, revealing that both her drink and Karen's share the same odor as the wine served to the family head. Panic spreads above that chamber, with strain standing. Doubts narrowed. Despite tight food plus drink security, that source of that poison must be someone within the gathering. Will explains that the toxin isn't ordinary. Their mother, Miria, taught them about that rare substance said to originate from a hidden race. That revelation strikes that party. Will names the origin as the Millennium Fox Tribe. Will silently addresses that fox-eared maid, asking if Luna belongs to the Millennium Fox Tribe. Their gaze attention sharply, noting the unique features she tries to hide. That maid panics, denying any connection to that tribe plus insisting it's a baseless accusation. Another maid questions their straight, casting uncertainty. In desperation, Luna accuses Will of deceit, urging everyone to ignore their claims plus trust her instead. Pressed to show her blamelessness, she's forced to drink the poison wine. Her pause raises doubts. Ahead of she can act, a man strikes rapidly, neutralizing her. That reality is agreed she was the culprit. While that maid's unconscious form is carried away, questions arise. Ruvelair questions how long Luna held served in the mansion. Will connects the moment to the Gardo Company's growing aggression. Commands remain given to extract any useful information from the captured follower. Banquet concludes awkwardly. Regrets are exchanged, though that event was handled. Unease lingers in the atmosphere. Privately, one guest questions about that Gardo Company, curious about its motives and role in the event. Both learn this Gardo is a rising power in the region, swallowing rival firms to dominate trade. Its arrival now extends even noble estates. That reality about Gardo starts to unfold When competing firms met setbacks, Gardo exploited their weakness to forcefully take over. The method seemed both cunning plus ruthless. One map discloses their expanding lands. In just one season, they've taken command of the Northwest region. Meanwhile, Anaheim firm builds partnerships to resist. Proof comes Donier worked under Gardo's orders. That event wasn't isolated, it became part of a larger scheme. Their defeat to kidnap Will led to threats against their family. Gardo employed them while leveraged to coerce until currently there had been no evidence. That poisoning eventually exposes their underhanded tactics and brutality. Determined to act, that head of that family declares both will use the failed poisoning to expose the Gardo company's crimes. Their daughter echoes their will, energized by his leadership. Will offers assistance, yet seems politely informed to stay uninvolved. That seems one merchant matter, and Victor wishes to handle it personally. Though he jokes about Will as a potential son-in-law, Victor shifts that topic, asking if Will seeks the holy blade in the spirit woodland. Will confirms. Although approval is given, Victor shows mild reluctance, warning it may be troublesome. Their daughter reacts theatrically, shouting in exaggerated irritation at their father's behavior. One instant of levity breaks the tension as Karen scolds the group for joking Will, reminding them he's their honored guest and benefactor. Victor discloses this technically no one needs permission to enter the spirit woodland, but acknowledges that his family controls all forests due to their monopoly over the city's lumber industry. He explains the holy blade was found by opportunity in one of their managed forests. Will suspects this Gardo's real aim might be domination of that lumber market. Using a certain smile, Victor grants full permission to retrieve the blade. That party expresses thanks. Curiosity arises, can Will truly draw the blade signified only for a champion? Even Will remained completely unsure. Two girls passionately declare the faith in Will, convinced he's fated to wield the holy blade. Victor plus that others observe using amusement. Despite Will's modesty, still the adults express confidence, citing his sacred raising as a sign of great potential. While that date ends, Karen eagerly offers to escort Will to his room. Plans for tomorrow's trip to that spirit woodland are quietly set. Suddenly, chaos erupts. One teasing argument breaks out above who gets to stay close to Will. That matter seems settled across a game. Beneath that moonlit sky, Will reflects solitary. Meantime, that two girls sleep peacefully, having won that right to stay by his side. In one fit of fury, Gardo demolishes furniture plus screams at his subordinates. The defeat to eliminate that Anaheim head pushes him to the edge. Fuming, Will recounts their progress. Half of Northwood seems already under his control. One further stride was all he needed to seize force from the Anaheim company. Despite believing their plans seemed flawless, the try to poison and kidnap failed. He strikes out, angry and ashamed. One hooded being reminds him of their support. Gardo admits Will motionless holds one more plan, promising repayment once the city is his. Out of a hidden torso, he retrieves a mysterious magical item, an expensive, sinister-looking artifact known as the Titanite. Under the full moon, a glowing lantern lights the route through the thick woodland. A hooded being quietly approaches, their movements careful and deliberate as they near a holy land. Both stop ahead of the holy blade, one mysterious appearance awareness their arrival, noting it has been ages since a human last appeared. Will and his companions ventured far within the woodland at dawn, determined to reach their goal by midday. Despite that long trip, both pressed on steadily, while that unfamiliar terrain stretched on. Doubts arose about their side, yet the woodland appeared to guide them instead of hinder. One sacred aura thickened that deeper they moved. Encircled by silent beauty, they felt the appearance of something mighty forward. The peaceful atmosphere alerted them of peace days, giving a rare moment of stillness. Their thoughts shifted to Karen, whose lively spirit contrasted with the present peace, keeping a vivid impression on them all. Although worry lingered above history troubles, Will and his group pressed on with cautious optimism. Their route soon led them to a glowing anomaly in the woodland, radiating with sacred power, beyond the trees. They found a holy clearing where a blade remained embedded in stone. That sight agreed their hopes. The legendary holy blade was real and within reach. Will's spirit raced using excitement, as though witnessing a scene straight from the stories he once read. That trip led them exactly where they needed to be. One abrupt encounter halted that group as a knight named Levine appeared, startling them with a bold entrance. Stating herself the blade champion, Levine claimed the sacred weapon as her rightful inheritance and demanded the group's leaving. Luna explained that she had come solitary, keeping her servants behind near the city to handle things herself. Their attitude drew sharp remarks out of the group, who questioned her motives and arrogance in seeking an audience. With rising tension, Levine lashed out and rushed toward the blade, shouting her claim with steady power and confidence. Levine smirked assuredly, dismissing Will and the others as unworthy of advancing the holy blade, refusing to spine down. Will quietly admitted he wasn't the blade champion but insisted their appearance had a purpose. With rising suspicion, the young woman questioned Levine's claim. If he had appeared earlier, why hadn't he readied the blade already? Legend said only the real blade champion could retrieve the holy blade. Uncertainty fell on Levine, casting them while a potential fraud. Considering that blade had remained untouched for over a decade, the group started to suspect the qualifications for claiming it might lie elsewhere. Driven by resolve, Levine approached the holy blade and stated it his without pause. Puzzled plus frustrated, Levine demanded replies. That blade talked again, revealing he was lacking something vital. That revelation that the blade itself had given stirred awe in the group. They kneeled before the stone, realizing that this was no ordinary artifact but a sentient power that decided its wielder. Introducing itself while Durandal, that holy blade addressed each of them. It recognized Levine as the blade champion, the young woman as a cleric, and Will as a young man bearing sacred blessings. Despite Levine's assurance, Durandal explained he motionless couldn't be selected. Will advanced onward, frustrated by that sword's earlier words. Will never expected to succeed instantly, but being denied the opportunity to even try left him irritated. Determined to see for himself, he approached the holy blade without pause, planting his foot assuredly before the stone. Using steady will grasped that hilt. Despite understanding that odds, he tightened his grip and gave it a pull, refusing to spine down. Their full power poured into the attempt. That blade remained unmoved, as though fused to the earth itself. Those observing called out in worry, still using all their might. The blade didn't budge. The sword's voice resonated again, warning that kept-up attempt would be futile. Irritated and riled upward, Will refused to give in. With clenched teeth and burning will, he yelled his defiance and poured everything into a last try. One thunderous surprise tore across the area. Rock cracked plus burst apart as Will's power surged, stunning everyone around him. To everyone's disbelief, that blade lifted motionless, embedded in a chunk of stone. Will gripped it in their grasp, wide-eyed plus breathless. Surprise spread above that onlookers' faces. Levine stared in astonishment, incapable of comprehend how Will had uprooted the blade and the pedestal together. That blade remained bound to the stone, but Durandal itself was astonished. This was the first period such an event had occurred in its long history. Will apologized for their outburst, yet the sword's voice comforted him. Nobody could have foreseen an outcome like this. Meantime, Levine, frustrated and pacing solitary, motionless, couldn't accept the result. The blade, however, disclosed the reason Levine missed the inner power and experience necessary to wield it. The party considered Levine's pause. They considered on his arrogance and seconds of doubt and fight, which the blade perceived as fatal flaws in a real champion. Will and the others were brought by surprise and thrown off balance as a quake shook the area near the blade. It addressed them formally, blade champion and cleric of the earth, mother, acknowledging their shared destiny. One dark power stirred under the earth. That blade sensed danger rising and warned that Rampage now moved toward a nearby city. Panic spreads across that town while residents are rushed to safety. From the eastern woodland, an ominous danger advances, causing confusion and terror. A captain quickly surveys the horizon. One swarm of monstrous one-eyed colossi, cyclops, bursts out of the trees. That commander seems stunned, recalling tales of ancient demon pawns will once believed were myth. Towering overhead that woods, the cyclops march forward relentlessly. The expressions remain ferocious, and their numbers overwhelming. Troops report an evacuation seems finished. Yet that enemy's size plus volume unsettle them. The giants draw nearer, blocking the sunlight. The captain gathers his troops. Bowmen begin places. Infantry prepares to flank. That command seems clear: defend the walls at all costs. Encircled by towering giants, the Northwood guards hold their earth, arms ready. Resolve burns in their gaze as they brace for collision. Terror surges across the lines when the Cyclops charge. One guard stabs at that foe, but the beast's size dwarfs him completely. One enormous foot crashes down, rattling the earth, two troops barely flight being crushed under the weight of the monster's stomp. Shouts echo while commands are shouted. Archers prepare the assault as panicked troops regroup plus rally. Despite that barrage, that colossi endure, blades plus arrows barely scratch the dense skin. Withdraw turns the single option. Enormous tree, hurled through the atmosphere, crashes with explosive power into the earth, driving fragments flying. That projectile smashes into the city wall, keeping rubble and injured troops in its wake. Surprise moves among the guards. Another Cyclops lifts 1 second wood, preparing to blow again. Troops scramble for cover while the danger escalates. Abruptly, one ballista bolt tears through one of the giants, piercing its torso and halting its advance. That direct hit causes that Cyclops to stagger plus collapse. Cheers erupt. That tide of fight finally begins to change. Still using one giant down, the commander remains wary. He knows the Cyclops can motionless launch enormous trees with ease, asking about how much period they truly gained. Elsewhere, one mighty magical incantation seems activated. One glowing orb channels power as ancient words summon a spell of rampage. In one moment, one blazing fireball erupts and crashes into one of the giants. Fire cover its form, halting its charge mid-step. All gaze chance as a young lady wielding a staff appears. Their spell leaves troops stunned. No one expected such force from her. Shouting orders accompany as troops charge forward. The stunned Cyclops recoils, while defenders push spine with renewed power and resolve. One skilled fighter dodges an incoming blow and counters with precision. Though their attack lands neatly, the giant's tough skin shrugs off the strike. Meantime, a wounded soldier is healed by a mysterious young woman in a hooded outfit. While their agony fades, confusion sets in. Luna merely flashes a gesture, and her ally steps forward to answer. Quietly and assuredly, the lady introduces them both as members of the Blade Heroes party. That commander relaxes slightly upon hearing that, yet presses for the hero's location, using haste rising. That commander rallies everyone, calling for unity between the guards and adventurers. While monsters close in, the young woman Levine prepares herself. Distant beyond that city, a voice echoes through the woodland, calling out for Levine. Someone scans the wilds, ignorant of the storm about to unfold. Suddenly, a young man rushes at astonishing pace, carrying an unconscious young woman in his arms behind them. Another being offers chase, struggling to keep up with his inhuman pace. As they realm, worry fills the young man's expression. Will questions if Lunamaria is safe. Without pause, Will urges that group to keep moving. The instant becomes strained. Will warns them the seal protecting the realm has been lifted. Ancient memories resurface. The seal, once placed during the era when deities motionless walked among men, was tied to a devastating conflict. The ancient fight between deities and the demon lord is remembered. One-eyed Cyclops, servants of darkness, were sealed under the realm, their appearance marking scars upon the earth. Strain rises while someone suggests that seal was broken by forbidden means, yet that reality is more unsettling. This wasn't done from outside, but something deeper within. Realizing that town is in danger, Lunamaria urges an immediate response. Will hears in quiet, feeling urgency. Will considers flying spine solitary. Levine willingly provided her assistance. Will nods briefly, grateful, but she interrupts. Luna refuses to let him expression it solitary. That silver-haired warrior folds their arms, reluctantly agreeing to stay behind, though annoyed. Luna acknowledges that haste and Will's responsibility. Their priorities are aligned. Defend the wounded. Response rapidly. Will quietly prepares. Will decides to use a familiar method, one from his teaching, surprising Lunamaria with his silent confidence. Although asked about his endurance, Will reassures them. He's accustomed to shifting across forests, plus has done this before. Using Lunamaria in their arms, Will readies to depart. Using one subtle grin, he warns Levine not to lag behind. Their assurance sparks their competitive spirit. Abruptly, Luna accepts the test. What became one retreat becomes one race. Both race ahead, each resolved to reach the city first. Will assured Lunamaria she would remain secure. Will drew her from the sealed stone and promises to response. Assurance fills their look. Using haste, he sprints through the woodland, carrying her while thinking of the city and their allies. Spine at that town, tension grows. A young woman is brought hostage. New danger is already unfolding. Strain surged while the nobleman entered his study, gaze sharp and movements hurried. Beyond, the mansion's tranquility was broke by a remote disturbance. Dropping himself inside the chair, he exhaled shakily, pressing his fingers to his shrine. Each breathing showed growing anxiety. Out of the window, smoke curled overhead the treetops. That realization hit. That was no ordinary event. Something enormous moved beyond the eastward woods. Uncertainty gradually gave way to assurance. That timing, that location, it became too precise. That couldn't be regarded while coincidence. A follower appeared with haste, declaring the carriage's readiness. Standing swiftly, the lord agreed. Evacuation became currently that only option. Relieved, that nobleman questioned about that others. That follower comforted him. The young lady was waiting at the carriage, and the staff had already been moved to safety. Before they could depart, foes disclosed themselves. Karen had been seized, bound at blade point. Their father's choice to pause had been exploited. Surprise paralyzed that nobleman while he saw his daughter in danger. That intruders grinned. With her as leverage to power his compliance, tears welled in Karen's look while Luna apologized to her father. Helpless, Luna became dragged away, that situation spiraling further out of control. Panic gripped his heart, powerless. The nobleman observed his daughter suffer, fury and regret etched over his expression. Faced using no other decision, the nobleman lifted his hands in submission. Their tone trembled while he agreed to comply with their demands. Nevertheless, his determination never faltered. Will demanded their daughter's release first, naming out the enemy's affiliation with the Gardo Company. Won's smug reply arrived rapidly. The foe recognized the bluff was over and disclosed his condition. The nobleman was to accompany him. Fighting strongly, Karen clamped down on her captor's hand. Their abrupt defiance caused agony and chaos, disrupting their grip on the situation. In the confusion, a mighty strike was dealt to one of the assailants. That nobleman yelled in alarm while the scene unraveled rapidly. One abrupt strike erupted. That butler leapt forward with precision, striking one of the captors and making them to release Karen. Alarm showed in the enemy's gaze. Karen held slipped from their grasp and retaliation came too rapidly for them to respond. Blade collided fiercely in the narrow hallway. Sparks flew as the faithful follower engaged multiple foes, his pace overwhelming them. Naming out their identity, the butler rushed to Karen's side. Will offered an apology, kneeling briefly ahead of resuming his defensive stance. Out of the shadows, a swordsman in ornate robes advanced onward. That foe recognized his appearance instantly. This was no mere bodyguard. One captor stumbled spine, scolded harshly for failing despite gripping Karen while a shield. That swordsman moved in silently, shielding their wound. Fresh danger emerged. Using a katana readied, a cold-eyed warrior stated his intent. Disobedience would mean Karen's execution. Uncertainty packed that room. Johann admitted that enemy's ability became formidable. Victor questioned silently if rescuing Karen was motionless possible. Resigned, Victor offered their last order. If things headed wrong, Johann was to save Karen, even if it signified keeping him behind. Using his choice made, Victor lifted his voice. Will demanded to be brought to Lord Gardo, determined to expression whatever came next. Victor called out while Karen became shoved harshly into the carriage. Their protests were found with threats drowning under the enemy's shouts. When questioned about Victor, the captors decided to throw them in with the other captives, uninterested in further complications. Behind narrow doors, one sinister scheme was made. Both would fabricate Victor's disappearance, with that chaos as their cover using commands given. That group began boarding the carriages. That captives seemed loaded without defiance. Wheels shifted rapidly on rock roads. That carriages rolled into the gap, carrying prisoners and secrets deeper into foe hands. While the carriage rolled on, Victor leaned forward and asked a one inquiry hidden nearby. One young maid observed with wide gaze. Will questioned the knowledge of that giant attack. That swordsman denied involvement, claiming Gardo's forces simply answered rapidly. Uninterested in revealing further, that male admitted he was just hired muscle. For replies, Victor would hold to expression Gardo himself. Within that carriage, Victor apologized to Karen, burdened using guilt. She answered quietly, forgiving him without pause. Resolve packed Karen's gaze. Though bound and captured, she decided tolerance, certain that the right moment to act would come. Hearing Karen's steady words, Victor remembered someone who might chance the tide. Their look sharpened as he recalled the young man. Karen softly murmured Will's name. Their faith wasn't simply blind faith, but trust in someone capable of changing everything. In a remote woodland, Will remained encircled by allies. A subtle change in the atmosphere drew his focus on ally. Question what became wrong. Will replied this Will held sensed someone calling for him, a voice familiar and urgent. Despite teasing joking, Will stayed grave. Someone required them, and he knew the period to act had come. Will sensed threat rising, plus urged his group to move faster. One sense of haste weighed heavily on them. Meantime, that enemy's carriage approached that city gates. Within that walls, turmoil unfolded while giants launched a brutal assault. One pair of enormous beasts approached the city wall as warriors brace for fight. Among them remains one determined knight, set to defend the people behind her. Will, that black-haired champion, rushes forward alongside that knight. He carries an unconscious young woman in his arms, moving rapidly through the battlefield with focus and haste. One towering one-eyed beast charges straight at the fortified wall. Turmoil spreads as troops scramble to load the ballistae and prepare for collision. Seizing the opportunity, the knight and a mature warrior blow the monster's exposed spine. Using that giant collapsing, the troops press forward. Victory seems near as Will and his allies deliver the finishing strike, ensuring the animal stays down. That fallen titan groans while troops surround its body, stabbing relentlessly to ensure it is neutralized. Among them, one fighter cheers, relieved that one more danger is eliminated. Elsewhere, a second beast smashes into the battlefield, driving troops flying through the atmosphere as stones scatter from the collision. Screams erupt while one guard clutches their injured leg while others flee. Another colossus advances, preparing one brutal blow on the vulnerable. Out of atop the walls, a mage orders the forces to draw the enemy's focus. Luna urges their allies to defend the wounded below. Meantime, that injured remain being dragged to safety behind the lines. Healers rush to the side while the chaos of fight rages on. Overwhelmed by that flow of injured, healers struggle to maintain speed. Cries for aid echo across that courtyard as medics rush from one wounded to another. Beside the wall, a soldier barely escapes a lethal swing. His panic is visible as another monstrous being storms the guard without pause. Concern sets in while one seasoned fighter observes the toll. Reinforcements had appeared, but exhaustion and injuries are spreading rapidly over the lines. Despite earlier victories, that foe displays no signs of stopping. Dread seizes the gate captain. Will understands that if this continues, the giants will breach the guard and the entire city could be lost. Refusing to spine down, one knight lunges at a rampaging giant, her blow piercing the monster's side and halting its momentum amid the chaos. Nearby, a young woman is drew in the jaws of another creature. Shouts ring out while their allies scramble to cast one spell, desperately trying to shield her. Just in period will, and the armed knight blow from both sides. The synchronized assault cuts down that danger before it can finish its attack. As the dust settles, Will supports the injured young woman while exchanging a determined glance with the knight near him. Fighters gaze ahead in awe. The injured colossus rests headless, its limbs severed. Gasps of recognition spread among the defenders as one young woman shouts out, calling Will champion. Whispers confirm that blonde knight as the blade champion Levine. Meantime, others speculate about Will, pleased by his unmatched power and sharp method. Observing that battlefield, Will notes that town remains intact. Though Will succeeded in sever only an arm, Levine had effortlessly removed a giant's head. The foe becomes clearer. These creatures are remnants of the holy demon conflict, Cyclops once commanded by the demon lord himself. Fine in camp, that girls out of Will's party greet him with admiration and relief. He responds humbly, astonished to locate they had joined the fight. In that aftermath of fight, Levine demands replies. One young woman urgently asks where the heroes had disappeared to during the crisis. Luna clarifies that dire situation. Although that city fought hard, the giants kept coming and exhaustion among defenders kept trying to rise. Will offers their aid without pause. Levine, certain in his power, prepares to eliminate the monsters and restore peace. Lunamaria moves ahead, preoccupied by troubling thoughts. Something about that Colossus strike feels unnatural and calculated. Luna discloses one deeper truth. Someone intentionally broke a seal, triggering the invasion. Lunamaria voices one deeper worry that Giant's attack is merely a diversion. She believes their real target rests away. Will's intuition supported her growing suspicion. One abrupt dread grips him as he realizes Karen and the others may be the real targets. Levine responds sharply, ignoring the urgency. Though skeptical of Will's concern, Will allows him to depart if he chooses. Strain rises, yet Will redirects attention. Will urges that cleric to aid the wounded while emphasizing the need for unity, certain in their own power. Levine scoffs, drawing their blade. Will declares himself sufficient for this battlefield, unconcerned with further assistance. Levine raises his blade far and steps forward solitary. Stating a test, he prepares to expression the monsters without pause. One mighty swordsman appears on the battlefield, his arrival causing surprise and awe. Warriors recognize him instantly. He is the fabled blade champion. Among the lines, quiet whispers increased. That strongest swordsman in the realm has appeared. Troops straighten up, plus commanders brace for one renewed offensive. With fearless will, the blade champion charges forward. Their blade slices across the towering giants, clearing the route out of the fortress walls. The defenders watch the change unfold. Hope returns. Morale surges while they witness the fight beginning to chance in their favor. Abruptly, Will, clad in shadowy hair and purpose, lands near the commander atop the wall. Will remain quietly on the fortress wall, drawing the focus of the commanding officer. Politely, Will clarified his motives to assist, but noted he needed to depart temporarily. Will requested both continue defending without him for the period being. Without pause, Will leapt from the far wall. The troops observed in astonishment. Astonished he remained safe after such a fall. Landing effortlessly, Will raced across the empty streets, his focus sharp and steady as he searched for signs of danger. Scanning that region, he spotted the absence of any civilians. Using rising worry, he wondered whether the evacuation had been successful. Will emerged at that front gate of a huge imposing estate. Without slowing down, Will shifted toward the entrance with haste in his steps. Will pounded on that heavy doors, calling out his identity, in hopes of being recognized. Dropping his arms, Will drew a far breath. Their expression shifted serious as he braced himself for what he might locate inside. Interior remained wordless and motionless. He named out to familiar names, but only cobwebs and unanswered atmosphere welcomed him. Uncertainties packed their mind. Just as uncertainty rose, a young woman rushed into his arms. Will drew there astonished, the young woman clung to Will, rattling with desperation. Their request was simple yet urgent. She begged him to save the others who were brought. Tears welled in their gaze while she named those in danger. Their tone cracked while she pleaded for the safety of Lady Karen and the master. Will pressed for further details, plus that maid explained in fragments. Both had been kidnapped by that Gardo company, and the situation had escalated rapidly. Luna described that instant the alarm rang. Creatures struck simply after Will had left, and the master ordered an immediate evacuation of the mansion. Overcome by terror, Luna had hidden while the others were brought away. Will gently comforted that maid, placing a grip on her head. Their courage held guided them, and now he understood what needed to be done. Assurance returned to their tone. Will told her to depart everything to him, promising that he would bring everyone's spine safely. With haste in his heart, Will ready to depart. Will requested a map and agreed the enemy's location, determined to save Karen and the master. Meantime, in another part of the city, a young woman ran through the streets, her pace quick and gaze scanning every corner. Shouting out for someone named Levine, she looked desperately. Each empty location deepened their concern. Will was nowhere to be found. That young woman wandered through narrow alleys, murmuring possibilities. Levine wasn't in that central, otherwise west side. Will might have gone with the others or left the city. Concern deepened on their expression, their thoughts rose heavier. Imagining what might hold caused him to disappear without a trace. Recollections of Levine's preoccupied look resurfaced. Still ahead of they appeared in town. He seemed preoccupied. Something was clearly weighing on his mind. One abrupt carriage burst onto that street. With no period to respond, she was flung aside by its reckless pace. Landing difficult, Luna winced in agony. Their spine ached, but irritation burned brighter. This setback wouldn't stop her from continuing the search. That speeding carriages tore across the city, their wheels kicking up dust as they elapsed. Bystanders voiced complaints, amazed by that reckless speed. Within one of that vehicles, Karen plus the master sat bound. The expressions displayed tension. Both aware of the danger nearby them, shortly, the carriages reached an imposing building using fortified stone walls. It became plainly a stronghold far from any land of safety. Soldiers commanded the captives out. Karen plus the master were escorted over the courtyard, observed closely as they were marched inside. That captors announced the delivery using a sneer. Karen plus that master seemed dragged before Gardo, their fate now in his hands. Gardo, seated assuredly, mocked their captive plus blamed him for disrupting the town. Their arrogance packed the room as he disclosed himself as the Gardo company's leader. One guard hit the prisoner, making him to kneel. Gardo observed using one smirk, relishing the show of dominance. Grabbing that male by the hair, Gardo stated his rule. Will demanded obedience, forming clear who controlled that city. Will raises his blade with Will after learning the Anaheim family has been brought hostage. He prepares himself to expression the foe without pause. Within one glowing circle, Anaheim lies fallen, bound tightly with rope. The foe looms over him, giving a brutal strike. Anaheim's daughter, also captured, screams while Luna watches their father collapse. Despite their restraints, Luna struggles against the guards, consumed by terror and anger. That foe mocks Anaheim, reveling in their suffering. Will taunts the weakened man while remaining happily over his broken body. One monstrous being delivers grim news: an invasion holds begun. But the brute named Gardo shows no worry, disregarding the rising danger outside. Gardo clutches their prisoner plus smirks while tension rises. Their taunting tone hints at knowledge of something ancient, creatures known solely through myth. Realization strikes Anaheim. Across narrowed gaze, Will recognizes the truth. That turmoil around them was not random, it was orchestrated from the start. Laughter erupts out of Gardo while he boasts of his actions. It became Will who broke the seal, unleashing the giants buried in slumber. Anaheim, wounded but resolute, challenges Gardo's motives. The consequences of that colossi, breaching the walls, could devastate everything, even his own forces. Steady. Gardo discloses their ambition. Using one grin stretched wide, he declares his goal without pause. He intends to claim the city as his own. The young woman watches in surprise as the captor admits the giants will indeed bring rampage if they're allowed to roam unchecked. One twisted grin spreads over Gardo's expression. Will proposes one grim scenario: what if that giants only march through Anaheim's side of the city? He realizes Gardo has selected madness over reason, invoking ancient figures once faithful only to the demon lord. In their palms, Gardo discloses a sinister relic. Its identity, that giant's flute, marks it as the key to controlling the released monsters. Shouting in astonishment, Anaheim plus their daughter recoil at the truth. Gardo brags about that cost of obtaining that artifact, unconcerned using the devastation it may bring. Gardo boasts using assurance, stating his control over the giants through the flute. Scenes of rampage unfold in their words. Once the giants break through, they'll tear down homes, shops, and entire districts, keeping ruin in their wake. Showing his plan, Gardo describes the next phase. Their company will fund the city's reconstruction, with the chaos to tighten its grip on local force. Will envisions expansion beyond that town with the people's thanks secured. He plans to rise further, seeking to dominate trade over the capital itself. Gazing below at the injured Anaheim, Gardo mocks him coldly. In their view, there's no chamber for rivals, solely victory, and Anaheim is now obsolete. Instead of stopping it rapidly, Gardo grins wickedly and mocks Anaheim. Will plans to drag out that suffering, savoring every instant of dominance. Anaheim's child shouts out helplessly as he's beaten again. Their defiance is silenced by guards who restrain her while taunting her pain. Across that turmoil, a cruel voice echoes. Gardo demands this Anaheim stay alive at least long enough to suffer further beneath his control. Bruised plus breathless, Anaheim collapses solitary on that patterned floor. Despite everything, Will motionless holds on, barely conscious but not yet fallen. Although bound, his daughter's will hardens. Tears fall, yet her gaze burn with Will. While the young woman cries out in desperation, the captors discuss her fate. Their scream pierces that chamber, calling for Will. Her last hope, abruptly. A mighty power blasts through the chamber. Guards remain thrown off the feet, and the evildoers freeze, stunned by the unexpected intrusion. Will appears across that broke window, landing with sharp focus. His gaze reflects steady Will as he surveys the chaos below him. Facing their using a peace smile, Will reassures Karen. Their terror vanishes, replaced by comfort and joy as hope returns at last. Out of that sidelines, someone watches quietly. The look changes, perhaps seeing that the situation has shifted beyond Gardo's control. Will dashes over rooftops, his gaze locked forward. That breeze rushes history as he races toward the enemy's base before it's too late. Mid-leap. Will names out for Karen plus Victor, hoping for any clue about the captive's location. Haste tightens their grip while he runs. News appears Gardo's firm has multiple hidden bases. Will understands he's running out of period and must act rapidly before tragedy strikes. In one surprise encounter, Will meets a familiar expression. Levine appears, teardrops forming upward at the sight of Will. While both talk, Will learns Levine had been helping defend the city. Luna might hold that key to finding the captives before the giants blow again. As Levine praises Will's courage, Will turns to Lynx with haste. There is something Will requires information that could change the course of events. Levine's look pivots, curious, while Will explains. He's searching for one specific carriage, one this might lead them straight to the captives. Lynx remembers seeing it before. Racing down a nearby road, Will presses for certainty, plus that answer sparks new resolve in him. Free of losing another second, Will dashes off. He promises to talk afterward, keeping behind a stunned but pleased Levine in his wake. While Will disappears, Levine quickly composes herself. Using sounds of battling echoing from the east, she decides to head toward the danger to assist Champion. Will enters that scene using peace authority. Gardo plus their men demand his identity, but one of them recognizes him, the same boy who once stopped their abduction. Karen rushes towards them, pleading for aid. Will's look shifts to Anaheim's battered form on the floor, and his expression tightens with Will. With a burst of power, Will releases a shockwave that blasts through the foe lines, marking the beginning of his response. That entire room freezes as an overwhelming force fills the atmosphere. Still seasoned fighters can barely stand under the raw power Will emits. One foe, stunned plus kneeling, admits their mistake. Will wasn't simply a reckless boy. Underestimating them became one grave error-wound piece. Yet menacing swordsman strides forward, his voice laced with amusement. Will awareness Will's killing purpose and welcomes it with a sinister grin. With gaze wide and concentrated, the man declares his identity, Mishima, and announces himself as Will's next challenger. Will immediately spots the sword at Mishima's side. Its design reminds them of Father Ronin, one sign. This new foe is no ordinary fighter. Mishima charges ahead, free of hesitation. One shockwave trails behind while he charges, promising a lethal confrontation. Drawing their blade, Mishima unleashes a flurry of far-paced slashes. That atmosphere is torn apart as he attacks relentlessly, laughing with every blow. Mishima strikes using lightning pace, but Will reads his motion and parries. That clash sends waves through the atmosphere, yet Will stays composed. That swordsman closes in anew, pressing the attack with power and precision. Will is forced spine. His gaze wide, but he reacts just in period. Despite that rising strain, Mishima taunts Will. Will notes this. Will hasn't even readied his weapon yet, believing it a sign of arrogance or weakness, thou pleased by Will's agility. Mishima stays certain. Will warns this evading solitary won't be enough to win against his sharpened blade. One cut tears across the space between them. Karen watches in alarm while that attack barrels forward with terrifying power toward Will. Mishima unleashes one rapid blade-drawing blow. Their pace overwhelms Will momentarily, claiming dominance with precision and twice the reaction period. Will charges forward with his blade, facing a mighty swordsman hooded in a patterned robe. A monstrous being looms in the background, but Will remains concentrated as the blade slashes toward him. That floor seems splattered using blood. Observers yell out in horror, believing Will Hold's been hit down. Their opponent's method appears fatal, plus the onlookers assume the fight is over. However, the fighter cries in agony. Blood erupts out of his expression as Will's response lands precisely. Surprising everyone, Will rises safe, their expression ferocious. Their assailant glares in astonishment, stunned by the reversal. Confusion spreads. The foe questions how a youngster could respond at such pace. The fighter considers ahead Will's astonishing skill. Despite unleashing a precise katana method, Will not only evaded it but responded to with a direct response. Assurance pivots to denial as the samurai claims his blade style is unmatched. Still so, his opponent's composure begins to crumble under Will's peace appearance. Will moves ahead, free of fear. His power stems from unending teaching under the world's greatest swordsman, his teacher, whose spirit seems to linger behind him. Refusing to accept that reality, the foe charges. Will dismisses Will's claim as fantasy, seeking to end the fight. One swift, devastating blow out of Will cuts through the enemy's assault. That duel concludes in a flash, with the swordsman overwhelmed and fallen stunned. Plus frustrated, that swordsman fails to understand how a boy like Will can dismantle his swordplay. Each strike misses. Plus uncertainty begins to take root in his mind. Without pause, Will accelerates towards their target. His movements blur as he channels precise power into a one blow. In this instant, Will vanishes out of sight. His enemy panics, incapable of locate him, and notices his grip weakening, his blades slipping away. A devastating flying strike slams down. Will strikes using overwhelming pace, driving the swordsman reeling backward, completely defenseless. The collision launches the foe over the arena. His blade falls to the earth, echoing the defeat he cannot anymore deny. Mishima rests still, beaten. The crowd watches in astonishment, incapable of process how a boy triumphed over the feared warrior. Fury boils above while another male steps forward, enraged by Will's interference. Will vows vengeance plus proclaims his ambition to seize force. Troops flood the hall, arms readied, responding to the outburst. Alarm moves as the conflict escalates. Will remains steady as the armed group closes in from all sides. The numbers grow nearby them completely. Using peace gaze, Will assesses the situation. Will realizes this was no isolated fight. Reinforcements have appeared and the real fight is just beginning. A sinister being raises a magical artifact far, focusing a surge of power that sky overhead responds. An ancient force stirs, gaze shine in the shadows. Individually, dormant stone gargoyles awaken, their gaze locked on the battlefield below. Using one thunderous burst, that creatures launch into motion. Many begin air summoned to enforce the will of their master. Encircled by troops plus airborne beasts, Will stand solitary at the center. That foe's close in from every side, taunting laughter erupts while the foe gloats. Reinforcements weren't enough currently. Will must expression an army of gargoyles under a certain tyrant's command. That foe offers Will one cruel bargain: submit and survive. Will mocks Will's defiance as gripping innocent lives as leverage. Steady Will reassures Karen plus Victor from over the battlefield. Their vow is clear: he will defend them, no matter the odds. Karen's look fill using faith. Luna believes in him completely, trusting that his power will break through their terror. Infuriated by Will's will, that foe unleashes his army. One wave of troops charges, blades readied and bloodlust rising. Will immediately leaps into the fray. Dodging the first assault, he launches a counterstrike that sends waves over the floor, scattering foes in all directions. Gargoyles descend out of overhead, but Will reacts instantly. With a mighty blow, he sends the monsters hurtling through the atmosphere. Crushed by the power of his attack, momentum builds while he leaps forward, cutting through foe lines without pause. Each motion seems sharp, deliberate, plus devastating. In seconds, that battlefield lies wordless. Bodies plus rubble cover that earth. Will remain solitary, untouched, As even the boldest foes stare at him in astonishment, panic sets in. The surviving guards pause, while silently reminds them they're that last ones remaining. Desperation strikes. That foe seizes the hostages again, clinging to one last advantage, hoping to stall the inevitable. Will glares silently at his foe, undeterred by the danger to Karen's existence. That villain, grasping for control, mocks their will with laughter and arrogance. Yet that circumstance shifts. A peace voice interrupts. Johann appears near Karen, his blade relaxing assuredly on her captor's shoulder. Having escaped captivity during that turmoil, Johann discloses he was imprisoned below. Will acted rapidly when that opportunity arose, thankful. Will recognizes Johann's arrival, the faithful butler. Ashamed of his earlier failure, humbly gratitude for the opportunity to redeem himself. Abruptly, one new being lunges at Will from behind. Brought by surprise, he instinctively reacts, gaze narrowing as the next danger unfolds. Using swift precision, Will grabs down the last assailant. Close, Karen starts freeing Victor. Following Johann's instructions, comfort washes above Karen as she sees Will safe. Luna rushes to them, calling out his identity with emotion flooding her voice in their arms. Luna locates safety. Will gently apologizes for arriving late, as Karen tearfully confesses Luna never stopped believing Will would come. While peace returns, Will pivots to heal Victor. Though gravely injured, Will assures Karen this Victor will recover using his magic. Simply while faith blossoms, eerie laughter echoes behind them. One shadowy appearance remains unseen, yet far from finished. Bruised plus furious, that fallen man refuses to give up. Kneeling on that earth, Will clenches his fist, vowing to rise again despite the odds. Driven by desperation, Will prepares for one last attack, gaze wide with madness. His fury builds, focusing every ounce of power into a reckless last stand. Sinister laughter rang across that corridor as a towering being approached. The group braced themselves, surprised by the overwhelming appearance that loomed just forward, glaring using hatred. The foe fixated on them, his fury boiling over. The cracked earth under his feet considered the intensity of his emotions. Peace but steady. The young woman remembered to him of his downfall. Using that Galda company crushed by Will, there became no one left to shield him. Grinning madly, Will lifted a chained artifact, the giant's whistle, vowing to rewrite fate with its devastating force. While one monstrous eye opened overhead, the summoning began. Will vowed to destroy everything, dragging them all inside ruin with him. Terror packed her gaze as she recognized the object in the enemy's grip. This cursed artifact, that giant's whistle, had summoned chaos and rampage upon the city. Without pause, the boy launched forward, his pace tearing the earth apart. Will aimed straight at that source, determined to stop the catastrophe. In one burst of light, Will soared across the corrupted space. The foe, now drew within a glowing sphere, had no period to respond. A devastating strike landed, driving the foe hurtling backward. Surprise rippled over the battlefield as onlookers observed him fall. Although battered, the man's form twisted grotesquely. That whistle exacted its toll, draining their existence as madness consumed him. Overwhelmed using guilt, the young woman apologized to Will. Despite seeing that whistle beforehand, Luna blamed herself for failing to act in period. Abruptly, tremors shook the earth under them. Will lifted Karen while the team braced for collision, seeing the same signs that had preceded disaster once before. Comments seemed rapidly exchanged, while one group readied to evacuate civilians, Will decided to stay behind and confront the looming danger solitary beyond the walls. Worry rose. One warrior lady assessed the damage and named for immediate evacuation, fearing structural collapse. Simply seconds earlier, the foe forces had breached the wall. One enormous horde of giants rushed through, roaring with unrestrained fury. Jumping into motion, the warrior hit with flawless precision. Their blade pierced that giant's dense flesh, halting its rampage instantly. Unmoved by that odds, she taunted the oncoming monsters, drawing their focus to herself. Their tone carried over the battlefield like a test. Out of a gap, allies praised her fearless charge. Motivated, both rushed forward to lend support, set to match her intensity. Explosions rocked that battlefield while colossi fell one after another. Their unending assault created openings for others to blow. With a mighty bellow, she launched skyward, landing another devastating strike that dispatched her foes sprawling. Blood flew while her expression remained peace and concentrated, undistracted by the scale of her foe. The identity Levine resonated like a memory, pulling her briefly into a history full of praise and purpose. Their father's tone once vowed she could become a master swordsman. Grinning brightly while a youngster, she had vowed to grow stronger. This vow, formed with innocence, now fueled her courage on the battlefield. Planting their feet strongly, Levine faced the next wave solitary. She challenged the giants without pause, insisting they show their real power. Out of the ramparts, troops rallied to her side. Their bravery sparked a surge of unity. Everyone followed the blade champion into the fray. From atop the battlefield, a shout stood overhead. The clash. They had to defeat the giants to defend the city. During the chaos, fighters launched coordinated attacks. Blades tore through dense limbs while flames seared hardened flesh, carving a bloody route through foe lines. In retaliation, the giants hurled enormous boulders, one of which broke violently upon collision near the city walls, scattering troops below, rushing into danger. A group of knights confronted the incoming danger directly. The earth cracked under their arms as they pushed forward without pause. Exhausted yet unrelenting, Levine clashed using another colossus. Sweat mixed with blood as she barely dodged an incoming blow, her will unbroken. Using her staff lifted, the mage released a surge of magic. Shadowy power spiraled toward the battlefield, erupting in a controlled blast that hit the giants with precision. Nearby range fighters seized that instant. While the magic stunned their foes, they pierced through the giants' exposed flanks with unrelenting power. Noticing solely one foe stayed, a call rang out to Levine. Without pause, she dashed forward, gaze locked on the last danger. Blade hit body in a decisive clash. Her blade plunged far, stopping the last giant's defiance in a one mighty blow. Cheers erupted as the last foe fell. That battlefield fell wordless, then roared with victory. The giants had been fallen at last. Levine stayed victorious while that crowd erupted in celebration. Their allies rushed to their side, joy and relief written over their faces. Without notice, that earth shook violently. Cracks cleaved that earth, and terror replaced triumph as panic spread among the warriors. One guard pointed towards the horizon, alarmed by a rising disturbance. Something became emerging from the remote peak range. Enormous fragments burst from the terrain, revealing a colossal being rising from the earth. Its form dwarfed everything noticed ahead of. Fear seized the lines. The troops realized they now faced the real leader, the head Cyclops, far larger than any prior foe. The colossal Cyclops emerged from the peak woodland, its towering frame rattling the earth with every step it took forward. Far within the woodland, an enormous animal started to stir as shadows from overhead elapsed over its hiding land. Far away, a group of adventurers shifted in alarm as the giant form emerged from the treetops. Recognition set in that colossal Cyclops held remained dormant just outside the city for an unknown length of period. No colossus they'd faced before could compare. Its appearance dwarfed every danger encountered until now. Warriors stricken with terror realized the terrifying truth. They were expected to expression this beast next. Terror swept through the lines as troops yelled, each stating the fight was suicide and insisting on retreat. Without pause, many shifted plus fled, driven by panic and the overwhelming urge to survive. One young woman named out, trying to rally them, but her request was ignored as they ran among that few who stayed. Reality settled in. Only an enormous army could match the giant, and they were outmatched. Then, as silence fell, someone whispered, "Great champion," while gaze widened at the arrival of an unknown being advancing the battlefield. A towering being emerged near the young woman, its appearance casting a shadow of awe and uncertainty. Meantime, troops watched the Cyclops. Noting its stillness, both assumed it stayed idle solely because it had just awakened. Despite that temporary peace, terror mounted. The raw size of the creature made the city's guard appear meaningless. Panic moved among the lines. Some troops recognized the adventurer's history aid, while others yelled in confusion as civilians fled from the advancing doom. In that turmoil, orders from the royal court appeared too late to rally morale. That remaining guards remained paralyzed, torn between task and survival. One commanding tone rang out as a soldier rallied the Northwood guards, haste laced in every word. Commons came rapidly save and escort the remaining citizens. Using intent renewed, the troops scattered to carry out their quest. Overhead the city, the Cyclops loomed with a grin, its enormous body motionless but threatening. No one could know when its fury could be unleashed. Chaos followed. Troops raced history the fallen, shouting for others to keep moving. There was no moment remaining to stop. Alarm bells screamed across that atmosphere. One fighter gazed upward, trembling. Before him remained the embodiment of rampage, motionless watching, motionless waiting. A heavy silence encircled the boy who remained solitary, burdened by the name of great champion that now weighed more than ever. Within their thoughts, a younger version of himself appeared, trembling. That terror he attempted to hide had never truly left him. Memories surfaced, an image of one blade once offered to them with hope. His history self-questioned his current will and power. That image of their father, once a proud and mighty knight, lingered in his thoughts. Recalling childhood stories will recalled how heroes never raced. No matter how powerful the foe was, they remained and fought. He wished to be similar to them. One twisted reflection confronted the champion, taunting him with words of doubt. This shadow self claimed to be their real nature, one without the courage to fight. Ahead of the despair could take hold, a familiar voice pulled him spine. The young woman held his expression, gaze full of haste, calling him to rise. Uncertainty filled his thoughts, will question what he'd simply experienced, uncertain whether it was a dream or memory. Though their form ached, Will assured them it was only fatigue. That wound slowed them, yet he refused to show weakness. Looking around, both understood that others were gone. Only the three of them remained at the now left front, left to expression the danger solitary. Using a silent breath, the champion tightened his fist. Will stared at that blade planted ahead of him, a moment of clarity settling into his gaze. His allies pressed him to withdraw. The injuries were mounting, and exhaustion had set in, but they motionless looked to him for side. Before he could answer, a young woman rushed forward, shouting his identity. Her arrival was abrupt, full of haste. Luna clarified Luna had searched the eastern side of the city. Another giant's fallen form nearby agreed that citizens' panic was well-founded, as they shifted their gaze outward. Alone being remembered his route, he had seen the enormous Cyclops on the way in. Retreat spread across that city. One inquiry remained: would they simply let the Cyclops rampage unchecked while everyone fled? Though despair had brought root, the young woman paused. Remarks drew in their throat until she finally spoke with newfound resolve. She advanced onward. Gaze wide with will, she disclosed the possibility of a solution no one had considered. There existed one legendary armament, the Holy Blade. It became stated to hold the force to overcome even the strongest of foes. Their tone rang clear, using certainty. That champion remained speechless. Surprise overwhelmed them while he realized what the next step must be. Recollections surfaced while the young woman mentioned Will, the boy once seen as arrogant, whose real purpose had brought him to the city. She recalled how Will had appeared near Master Levine, his appearance always raising questions. Currently, using gaze full of desperation, she cried out that this must be destiny. If Master Levine wielded that holy blade, victory could motionless be possible. Yet that champion resisted. Their voice cracked as he yelled in denial, convinced that he was unworthy and could never be the selected one. Silently, Luna started to speak again, asking where he had been earlier. Their tone shifted, not accusatory yet seeking clarity, hoping for reality in the chaos. A silent confession escaped the champion. He had accompanied Will to the holy site but failed to draw the holy blade. Tears welled while Will admitted that truth aloud. That weight of this defeat had never left his shoulders. Memories of strain and hopelessness returned. Burdened by hopes, he crumbled under the symbol of destiny, convinced he missed what others believed he had. Motionless, the young woman held on. Luna named him the champion, pleading for him not to surrender. Their belief clashed, using their crumbling will. In one surge of emotion, he hit the earth, overwhelmed by fury, pain, and self-loathing. That instant cracked their restraint, revealing the turmoil within. One abrupt glimpse of one symbol on Levine's shoulder froze everyone. That target, unmistakable, disclosed what they had doubted. With silent breath, he remained motionless. Recognition dawned in their gaze. Levine was indeed the selected champion of the blade. Amid the settling fragments, a lone being remained steady while the others observed on. Frozen in astonishment, that breeze shifted her cloak, revealing more than just fight scars. Recognition offered method to surprise as they realized the truth: they had followed someone whose identity was never what it seemed. Stepping forward, one of the girls attempted to steady her voice, insisting replies to the abrupt unraveling of their trust questions piled up. Why that disappearance? That silence, plus the hidden truth carried since their arrival in the city. Gaze full of pain, they wondered aloud if they'd ever truly been her companions, or just strangers pursuing a lie. Strain remained as quiet fell. Frustrated by the lack of response, one of the girls advanced onward, her voice cutting through the motionless atmosphere. Emotion overcame restraint. She hit Levine over the expression, the strike echoing louder than any words given. Tears welled up while she stated her leaving. Disappointment weighed heavier than anger, and she shifted away from the ally she not anymore recognized. Another attempted to talk, yet words faltered. Individually, the party started to walk off. The connection once shared now fractured. Left behind, one young woman pleaded with Levine to explain. Desperation clung to their tone as their friends disappeared into the gap. Cruel remarks hurt deeper than blades. With trembling gaze, the young woman was cast away, told she had been mistaken all along about who he truly was. Levine shifted his spine to the battlefield, walking solitary, shrouded in smoke and regret, his clenched fists the only sign of what he held. Spine. Distant out of the broken group, villagers mustered, unaware of the storm looming beyond their peaceful morning. The earth shook as a monstrous horned giant stomped into view. Its appearance solitary warped the atmosphere with dread. Out of the field forward, Levine spotted the creature's advance. That confrontation had appeared, and there would be no more period to run. Amid that wreckage, one lone being stayed, encircled by fragments and fallen foes. He muttered a desperate thought. He needed to flight as well. One tone called out through the dust. Following the sound, Levine found someone trapped under broke stone pleading for aid. That wounded clarified they weren't hit directly but had blacked out during the collision. Both had been stuck under the stone since. While assessing the situation, Levine spotted the advancing giant far away. Period became racing out. Without pause, he forced the stones apart, freeing the injured with haste as danger loomed closer. Supporting that wounded male, Levine pressed forward, steady despite their own pain. That fight wasn't over, and neither was his task. The rescued man spoke with thanks, marveling at Levine's power and will. Though wordless, Levine's look betrayed that toll he bore. A figure hung over them. The towering giant lifted its arm, set to blow both down in one devastating strike. Using no period to flee, Levine shoved his ally aside and took the full brunt of the attack. Body hurled into the earth. Hardly awake, he rested broken. Thoughts blurred while Will laughed bitterly, ashamed at how far he had fallen from what a champion should be. Levine von Allenheim became born one daughter of nobility on that western continent, her fate shaped by heritage and tradition, despite their gender. Luna took up the blade, idolizing her father, Isaac a beloved warrior. Their ability flourished under his watchful eye, though her mother quietly wished for a gentler route. When the holy target of the champion appeared, Levine desired of glory. Luna hoped their father would be proud, unaware that fate had already shifted. Delight shifted to dread while her mother, through tears, delivered the heartbreaking news. Her parent had perished in shame. Out of that moment, the world she knew started to darken. Following their father's disgrace, Levine plus her mother lived in silent exile. Rumors lingered, yet their mother's faith in their husband never wavered. One date, Levine formed their choice. With wool burning in her torso, she pledged her existence to the blade her father once wielded. Tears in her gaze, she swore to restore her family's identity and reclaim their lost honor as Levine, the champion of the blade. Victories followed, creatures fell, tales spread, plus companions mustered. To prevent pity, Luna decided to dress as a man. At start, everything appeared right, yet with every triumph, the burden of hopes rose heavier. Memories of her father's praise once gave Levine power, but now the blade she held felt like a chain she could not anymore bear. While terror and self-doubt crept in, she clung to the role she had created, smiling for the crowds while hiding the rising emptiness inside. Far down, her real self was buried under confidence and terror. Luna sealed it away to preserve that illusion. Beneath that moon's glow, she fell, and Bird appeared near her, its appearance unsettling yet strangely calming. The avian spoke. Leos, deity of Table Peak, had come. Their route became about to change. Levine, barely capable of move, questioned the eagle's appearance. It disclosed itself while one guardian, not of her, but of someone else. The bird spoke of Will, a boy lifted by deities whose power came from divinity. Levine understood Luna had found him before. Overcome by embarrassment, she measured herself to Will. Though marked while one champion, she saw only weakness in her reflection. That target was never a blessing. It was a lie worn for selfish ambition. Yet that bird disagreed. One hero's symbol solitary signified nothing. It offered their one tale, one that might change everything. Once one nobleman of that western continent, Isaac von Allenheim, served using honor in the army, gaining the trust of many. As on task, he heard of bandits threatening his shelter. Incapable of act officially, he broke lines to defend his people. Though their actions rescued one village, they were branded unlawful. Their death became hidden, plus his family cast out. The bird disclosed the story was real. Levine's father became no traitor. He was a champion who decided lives over law. Using new clarity, Levine was urged to chance and see what truly remained behind her. Pivoting around, Levine noticed that lives she had touched, those rescued by her blade, and comrades who once believed in her. Luna confessed their failures and confidence, acknowledging the truth she had long avoided. Yet still in their regret, thanks stirred. Using renewed intent, she remained tall while Isaac von Allenheim's daughter, Luna, reclaimed her identity, not from vanity, but from confidence. The giant now lay fallen before her, evidence of power born not from symbols, but certainty. Although injured, Levine pushed on. Her spirit burned brighter than pain, and her will could not any more be shaken. He charges forward, blade readied, unleashing a mighty attack that splits the earth. Using unrelenting pace, Will closes in on his target. That animal reacts too late as the boy's momentum carries him through its guard, slicing into its flesh blood. splatters while the boy stands motionless, blade glowing, Will reflects on how light that armament feels like it belongs to him. Nearby allies respond in awe plus terror. One larger danger, one giant. Approaches as others hesitate. The boy steps forward solitary. Gaze steady, questions solely for one promise that they'll survive. With a silent smile, he prepares himself for the next fight, knowing it's his task to stand and defend. Reflects on their history, recalling that faces of those he cares for. Using will, he prepares to expression the giant, accepting that he may not be forgiven for his choices. He charges with blinding pace, his blade slicing over the giant's body. The collision shakes the earth, keeping far gashes in the enemy's hide. Exhausted, Will remains ahead of the monster's towering frame. Their form seems near its limit, and he struggles to stay upright, legs barely supporting him. He recalls his father's power, remaining solitary with steady will. With a last bellow, he releases his force. The earth erupts under him as he clashes once more with the giant's devastating power. Abrupt power descends from the sky, rattling the battlefield. One being rushes forward, shielding the injured boy with steady power as others look on in surprise. The collision strikes with devastating force, driving fragments flying and the earth rupturing around them. Out of the smoke, a familiar expression appears. Reinforcements have appeared, hope returns.